Welcome to the Make It and Keep It presentation on how to create your own economy. This email address that we have here is the best way to ask a question at any time, whether you decide you're researching something on your own, whether you have a question about any of the topics and things we discuss here. You can always send us an email to member@makeitandkeepit.com. You will get an email response back directly for you. We will more than likely write an article on that and post it on Make It and Keep It, which will have more detail, more conversation, more discussion about your topic. And if it's a question we do not have in the frequently asked questions section, we will add it to the frequently asked section in Make It and Keep It. This is me. You've probably seen me on the front page. My name is Louis Mansour. I graduated from the University of Southern California. I have a bachelor's in finance, communication, and real estate, and then I went on to get my law degree. And from there, I had a bunch of jobs. I enjoyed my jobs, but they just didn't quite satisfy and get me to the point where I wanted to be. I worked for the second largest law firm in the country. I was there for 4 years. I worked for the studios, Universal, Disney, DreamWorks, a variety of them. Fun jobs. They just don't pay a lot. I had a lot more to offer myself and my family and my future, and I just didn't feel like that was where I needed to be. And so what I'm going to share with you today is something that I discovered as a result of my experimentation and my education and what I have gone through. And the way I discovered it was, I guess you could call it by accident or desperation, one or the other. I was frustrated because I would work all day long, especially if you worked at the law firm. I mean, you could get there at 9 in the morning and leave at midnight. And when I would go home, I would work on my real estate. I would work on looking for my stocks and what I was doing with that. I had a business that I started, and I was having more fun doing that, and I was making more money doing that. And this is kind of the sequence of how I got started with what I got started to arrive at the Create Your Own Economy system. I started in '87 in the stock market, and that was just pure stocks. We're not talking options, we're not talking bonds, Forex, anything. We're talking about just owning stocks. I started right after the crash in October, Black Monday, and that's what I got started into the stock market. Walmart, Pepsi, and JCPenney were my stocks that we bought into at that point. Then in 1989, I jumped into real estate. I graduated at 11 o'clock in the morning in 1989, May 11th, 1989. At 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I signed the closing on 2 homes. Those were my first 2 purchases. I've been in real estate ever since. I went on and I started 2 businesses, like I said. One of them was I was selling leather jackets. I was getting them for $35, $50 a piece. I was selling for $150 to $300 a piece. So I was making good money there, but I still had to go and chase down clients and customers. The other business, as I was dealing with real estate and things of that nature, people were coming to me to ask me questions. Mainly it was on asset protection, how to protect their assets, because I was dealing with setting up corporations. 1996, moved into options because I found out that there was an issue with just owning a stock, just going up and down, up and down. And so I wanted something that was going to generate cash for me quickly, and that was options, and it worked out for me. In 1999, I incorporated options into my business, and that brings us here. And since I was already in the stock market, and one day I'd be up, one day I'd be down, and like I said, I had paper profit. And then what I found out was you can't pay the bills with paper profit. It has to be real money. It has to be real profit. So the fact that I was up $10,000 or down $2,000 was irrelevant because I didn't have access to it. I needed to have access to that money, and that's why I moved into options and looking into other ways of making money other than just simply sitting into the stock market. So I went back to real estate. I already had 2 properties, like I said. I had them rented. They were making me money. However, they were good enough to pay the mortgage, but they weren't good enough to move me beyond that. And I had my own bills I needed to pay. That's when I started looking at this puzzle that I had created, and I had in front of me. I had the research, I had the experience, I had the jobs, I had time and education and stocks, but it just wasn't adding up. So I took some time to put that together, and this is pretty much the picture that I came up with, and I called it My Own Economy. This is what we're going to study today. We're going to break down every single thing you see here, and I'm going to try to give you as many examples as I can in the time frame and the time allowed to us as far as how can you set this up. You can do this on your own. Yes, it will take a little bit of time. It took me 12 years. I know it won't take you 12 years, especially now with the internet and things of that nature around, but I will caution you along the way of things to look out for. I will caution you along the way of pitfalls that may come along, and I will try to set you on the right path. So the things we're going to discuss are not going to be every little detail because we only have 4 hours. But what we're going to discuss are the major things that you need to look for. So it's a starting point for you to start assembling your own economy. The idea of my own economy is that you're in total control. And total control in anything, as we well know in this world, is about 90%. And the stock market is about 80%. So we're going to try to achieve total control as far as we can with our own economy. So what we're going to look at is this setup right here. It started out with this blank building as the puzzle started to form, and I had to start figuring out where the pieces went. The first thing that I realized is you need to have money to make money. I know there's a lot of people that will disagree with me. However, hear me out. You can go out and you can make money without having money by doing some odd and end jobs, by flipping property, by doing a variety of things. However, that kind of money is sufficient survival money. It is nothing better than a job. What we're talking about when we talk about creating your own economy, we're talking about daily cash flow that is going to supersede what you need. This, My International Bank, the reason I called it international is because we're looking to make money at any turn in our life. So the base here is our holding tank. It's our basement. It's where we're going to hold all of our cash for immediate cash flow generation whenever we need it. It's our fuel source. And the system needs to produce cash flow on a daily basis. And the simplest way to do that, I needed to figure it out. I was already in the stock market and in real estate. And I'm in the stock market, but like I said, that was paper money. That was not giving me actual cash. Walmart was going up and it was splitting. I mean, my Walmart tripled in no time. But I couldn't access it. I would have to sell it. So I needed to come up with some other form of making money. Do I keep buying and selling Walmart or other stocks, or what do I do? So I stumbled upon options, like I said, and that became the vehicle that I fell in love with, because I looked into options, I looked into Forex, I looked into futures, and of all of them, options was the least crazy, the least volatile, the least risky of all of the things in the market that I could control with some kind of temperament in order for me to manage and make money on a daily basis. It is very simple. It is not easy. Don't get me wrong. It is very simple, however, to generate cash flow on a daily basis. We're going to delve into options quite a bit. It'll probably be our biggest topic of discussion today, and it will be options. The other thing that we need to look at is, okay, now that I have an avenue of making money, now what am I going to do? I need to do something to where my money is always working and making me money, because I can't just have it sitting in the bank earning practically nothing. That's when I went back and I said, okay, real estate. I went and I made 75 offers before I received those 2 properties that I bought. Okay, I said at that rate, that's not going to give me daily cash flow. However, if I can buy property as I move along, I can start renting them out, and then little by little it should add up. Now mind you, I still didn't have quite a idea or a hold of what's the best way to invest in real estate. And when we get to the real estate section, we're going to delve into which ones you should concentrate on and why. But nonetheless, real estate came in number 2 as far as how we're going to proceed if we're doing it in order. The third thing was owning a business. Owning a business is nothing more than leveraging yourself. It is multiplicity. It is taking you and creating 10 of you. So you wanted employees to work for you. So if you look at this table of this chart, this picture, whatever you want to call it, they all have one thing in common so far. It's all related to money, and all of the money is related inside the picture. We need money to make money. Options can do it, real estate can do it, and the business world can do it. And they're established in the order of simplicity and immediate cash flow. Options being number one, real estate being number two, business being number three. The last picture here is you. Me, I'm sitting on top. However, me is not a money maker. Me is a money spender. I need these other three to make me money so that I can survive. I need to pay the mortgage. I need to pay the electricity, the food, and whatnot. So me on the inside needs money, but I needed to create a system that I can manage. And this is what we came up with here. So planning, time, and people are needed to set up a business. Real estate needs time and offers to be made and accepted. Options, you don't even have to talk to anybody to make money with options. Nonetheless, when we start making money with all three, we want that filling up that basement. We want it to be full of money. So what are we going to do, and what is the vehicle that's going to get us there? Corporations is the thing that came to mind. Like I said, I had been teaching people how to set up in corporations, and we will get into how I found out that I needed a corporation, because when I bought those first two homes, I was not incorporated. So I had my cash flow roadmap. I was ready to go with that, but I needed to protect myself. And I learned early on that I needed to do that, because the very first house that I bought, or one of the first two homes that I bought, I had a renter. And as it turned out, she was a habitual money chaser. And by that, she filed a lot of frivolous lawsuits against people. She would spill things in the supermarket, start screaming that she slipped on something in the supermarket. They would settle with her so they wouldn't get sued. Well, she tried to do that with me. What happened is she didn't pay the gas bill because she wasn't spending money. She wasn't working. She had lost her job. She cut the gas line and sued me that I had not taken care of an important part of the house in order for her to be able to get gas. So I didn't settle with her. We went to court. She lost the case. She got evicted at the same time. And that's how I realized, hey, I need to get protected. Not because I had an epiphany, because somebody came up and said, hey, son, you had to protect yourself here, but you're not properly protected. And that's how I started learning about corporations. Then going to law school wasn't bad either. That kind of helped me get going with that. I hadn't finished law school at the time, so it came in handy. So asset protection became a very important part of what we're dealing with as far as our economy. What's the use of making the money if we can't protect it? And that was the idea. Then I became friends with some accountants who taught me this concept: tax and estate savings. And they're the ones that taught me the difference between somebody who prepares your taxes and someone who can give you a strategy on your taxes. A preparer and a strategist, two totally different things. We will get into that. So by looking at that picture, notice that the outside is all protection. The inside is all money generation. We're going to make the money and we're going to protect it. Like a farmer builds a silo or a barn when he harvests his fields and whatnot. He needs to put it inside to protect it. And that's essentially what we ended up with. That's the picture that we drew. Now this is how it evolved. This is a prettier picture. And so we will be using both of them. We will use the traditional picture that we started with right there. And what we'll do is we'll go through all of the parts of it like that. But then this will be our blueprint, for lack of better words, and then we'll move on to the actual picture that we're building with Create Our Own Economy. So we're here to look at this Create Your Own Economy. We're going to get as detailed as we can with this roadmap in the short period of time. That's why I said, if you have any questions, if they don't get answered here, if we run out of time, please go ahead and email them to member@makeitandkeepit.com. I will get back to you directly. I will write an article, put it on the website that you can read, and you can get started. But essentially, this is what Create Your Own Economy is. It's nothing more than learn and earn. You need to learn and you need to earn. We're going to cover these two concepts in several different breakdowns, but essentially what we need to do is we need to research, experiment, do some work here and there, figure out how they fit together, and the entire time we need to be learning and earning. Because the idea of this learn and earn sounds very easy, but again, not easy, but simple, because what we want to do is we want to discover how we can take control of our financial future without these four things on the bottom. We don't care about a job. We don't care what the outside economy is doing to a degree. We'll get to the point of what I mean by that. But we don't care about what the outside economy is doing to a degree. We don't care whether the real estate market is up or down. We don't care whether the stock market's up or down. What we're going to do is we're going to take an advantage of whatever is happening out there, and we're going to use it as an opportunity. We're going to take advantage of whatever is happening, and it's going to become our opportunity. There are huge problems affecting our lives because we're allowing them to. And these are some of the problems. Bad employment, bad jobs, bad leaders, bad economies, taxation is going to get worse, spending is out of control. Our grandchildren are going to be paying off these debts that we're going through. Yes, these are bad problems. Yes, these are having an effect on our society and our economy. We need to be aware of these, but we're not going to allow them to control us. One man's problem is another man's opportunity, unfortunately. But we're not going to be causing these problems. We are not the cause of these problems, but at the same time, we're definitely not going to allow them to become our problems. We're simply going to take a problem, we're going to look at it from a different perspective, and we're going to turn that problem into an opportunity. It was that reality that caused me to sit down and put that puzzle together and come up with that blueprint. And that blueprint, what I like about it is it evolves with the market. No matter what market we're talking about, the business market, the real estate market, the stock market, you name it, it evolves with it. The parameters that I was using to make money with it in 2006, 2007 are totally different than the money making opportunities and the parameters that we're using today. It evolves, it evolves, it evolves. And it always works for you so long as you learned how to learn and put that learning to earning. Because the solution, regardless of what you want the solution for, what's the purpose, would be healthy, wealthy, secure, have fun, want to travel, want to be doing nothing. It doesn't matter what it is. Hinges on control. We need to control our economy. As soon as you control your economy, all those problems become your opportunities, not your problems, not your disadvantage. So we're going to concentrate on the control. We have already started that journey by, one, listening to what's going on here, getting a roadmap, and then what we're going to do is we're going to eliminate that fear that we have as far as these problems being in our world. We're going to eliminate that lack of confidence that we have as far as knowing what we need to do, because that's where the fear stems from. We know we need to do something, I just don't know how to do it. Well, that lack of confidence is going to create fear. We're going to eliminate both of those, and I'm hoping that we're going to do that here today. By the time you finish today, you should have eliminated the fear and that lack of confidence. It should actually encourage you that this is very doable, and we're going to do it in no time flat. So again, here's our blueprint. I have numbered them 1 through 5. We're going to start with the outside, and the outside is the corporations, which is going to provide us with the asset protection and the tax savings. And by the way, it also enhances the international bank, because the bank is stemming from the corporate power, and we're going to utilize that. So this is what our castle is going to look like in real life. Once we finish from the blueprint, it's going to be your own economy, and it's going to be that complete. And this is not overwhelming. You're going to be confident enough to set this up by the time we're done. Believe me. These are the plan of attack points that we're going to utilize. Other than control and education, which we're going to get to here real quick, this is what we're going to spend most of our time on, concentrating on these 5 points. We're going to create a shield around our assets. Again, we started out with corporations. We want to gain access to the money. That's our bank. We want a simple, reliable daily cash flow. And that's cash flow, not cash flow. Cash flow, and that's going to be the options world. We want a secure long-term cash flow generator. That's going to be our real estate, and we want to leverage ourselves and our time, and that's going to be business. By the way, you will leverage yourself and time with all three: options, real estate, and business. But mainly in business, because we're utilizing other people's efforts in order to make money. So our solution is going to eliminate the need to struggle with bad economies and bad jobs and bad anything out there. When we create our own economy, we will control the problems and we will control our future. So we're going to control this right now. So let me discuss what makes this thing so powerful, this whole system. Why is it powerful? Remember what I said, it's learn and earn. This is something we need to know and we need to do. There's no ways around it. Education is the key. 90% of the people in the market, for example, the stock market, lose money every day. I had people say, oh my God, that's such a horrible number. Why? That's a great number if you're part of the 10%. Guess where we want to be and where we're going to be? Part of that 10%. We're not the ones causing the 90% to lose, but when they're going to be dumping their money, we want to be there to catch it. So we're going to educate ourselves. We're going to gain the knowledge of how to create this own economy, and that economy hinges on us taking advantage of the opportunities that are given to us. We want to make sure that we learn how to properly apply that knowledge. I know a lot of PhDs that are making $30,000 a year. Knowledge is worthless unless you know how to apply it. We're going to take that knowledge and we're going to put the power behind it today. I'm going to show you how to apply the most basic things, and then we're going to see how it develops into our economy. So the information that's out there, again, you have to be very picky with it. You have to be very careful of what you're looking at, because I don't know if you've seen that commercial where the young man is asking the lady, so where'd you hear that? On the internet. Well, how do you know that's true? Because they can't put anything that's not true on the internet. They put a lot of things that are not true on the internet. So be very, very careful. When I learned this, by the way, there was no internet. I had to go sit in a library and read books and buy books and talk to people. MakeItAndKeepIt.com has a lot of articles. I've already alluded to the fact that we have articles there. We will write articles and answer questions and put them there. It's a very good starting point for you. It's available to anybody who wants to. You can read articles on stock market, real estate, business, credit. We're revamping the website, so we're still uploading and loading things on there. But if you want to see where, if you have a question, you answer it, you want to see what that answer is, where to start, go to Make It and Keep It. It will get you going. So now let's get to the plan of attack, and let's start with that very first point right there, which is create a shield around you and your assets. And this is, by the way, the exact same stuff that the rich and successful do. And this is vital to your success. There's no way around it. Okay, there is no way around it. We have to follow this to a T. Because right now what we've gone over is the planning overview. We've already looked at what we need to do as far as to get started. We need to get the right education or the right information, and we need to properly apply it. Again, we're going to create our own economy. You can get started at Make It and Keep It. For those of you who don't want to do it on your own, you can go to thecardinalruleofmoney.com. I'll put this up again. You can go there, and then you can have us coach you and walk you through it if you want. But by the time we're done, you're going to see that this is very doable. You can do it on your own, and we can get started from that perspective. So let's continue now with the second part of what we need to do, which is how are we going to take this blueprint that we have right here, and how we're going to construct our castle so that we can start creating our own economy. Now, before I proceed, I'm getting into some legalities. I'm getting into some accounting, some security issues. So I have to, unfortunately, put this up, this notice. It's a saying that I'm not acting as your lawyer, accountant, broker, and giving you investing advice or anything of that nature. So I want to point that out. Unfortunately, we're in that type of business. It's a very touchy business, very legal based business, and we want to make sure that we protect ourselves, which, by the way, is very, very, very good point to keep in mind when you are running your own economy. And we will discuss this again and again and again. You need a very good accountant in your corner, and you need a very good lawyer in your corner. Hope that you never ever need the lawyer, but I'd rather be safe than sorry. And the accountant, especially if we're going to grow our economy, we're going to need that accountant. We need a good strategy type of accountant, not just a preparer. Again, you can send us the questions to make it, member at makeitandkeepit.com. So corporations, let's start diving into this. This is going to get a little bit crazy in the sense that if you're new to it, you're going to think of it, oh my God, this is so involved. It is not. Think of it this way. If, for those of you who have children, you probably know that one of them likes macaroni and cheese and the other one doesn't. One likes vanilla ice cream and the other one doesn't. You know which clothes fit which child, you know what room they're in, and everything else. So when you do their laundry or when you buy them something, you know exactly who you're buying it for, and you exactly know how and what they're going to do with it. Same thing with a corporation. When we set up a corporation, it has its own folder. We do not mix and match. We do not try to fit the jeans that fit a 10-year-old on the 15-year-old or vice versa. We do not take anything from one corporation and try to fit it into our personal business, which is our home and our personal bank account. We do not take it from corporation E to corporation B unless we do it legally and at arm's length. This is the kind of stuff we're going to discuss. So we're going to need to create that shield, but we need to do it properly from the beginning. Because we've got to remember, this is the basis for everything, because it doesn't do us any good to make all that money when we don't know how to protect it. We're going to make a lot of money. We're going to learn how to make it pretty soon. But right now, let's look at how we're going to keep it. It doesn't do us any good to be putting money into a bag that doesn't have a bottom to it and is just falling out. These are the points we're going to discuss with the corporations. The asset protection that was on one slope on the blueprint on the house. The estate planning and the tax planning was on the other one. The privacy we have not discussed, that we're going to get into that just briefly today. And then the access to other people's money, which is another fancy way of saying credit. And that's our basement. That's where we're going to be putting all that money. Now these are terminologies right here that are going to be new to maybe to some people. And they're not that difficult, but people like to make them difficult. Why? Because they want to sell you on a service. Oh, you got to come and use me. You can't figure this out on your own. Hey, you can do this on your own. Let me break this down for you. You ready? CN&S Corporation. Those are not state designations. Those are IRS. When you file your paperwork with the state to become a corporation, they don't care whether you're a C or an S, because there is no such thing with them. You're just simply a corporation. When you get your tax ID number from the IRS, you have to designate whether you want to be a C or an S. So what is a C and what's an S? A C corporation is something totally separate from you. It pays its own taxes. It has its own tax ID number. It does everything on its own. An S corporation isn't quite so independent. With an S corporation, it's called a pass-through entity. So when it makes $10,000, $5,000, $1, $100,000, it doesn't matter, and it's time to pay the taxes, that passes through from the corporation onto your personal tax records, and you pay taxes based off your personal level of taxes. It doesn't have its own schedule for tax purposes. That's pretty much the biggest distinction for right now that you need to be worried about. Other than that, protection wise, they do to a certain degree work the same way. As far as having number of investors and shareholders and all that, there's a limitation on the S corporation as compared to the C corporation. If I'm not mistaken, it's 35 people that can be investors. But keep in mind, we're not looking to bring in investors into our corporation. This corporation is for you, your spouse, your children. This is not for the outside people. For that, we're going to set up something totally different if we're going to do that. That will probably more than likely be an LLC. The LLC can be either one of the C or the S kind of status. It can be a pass-through corporation for tax purposes, or it can be a separate tax me on my own like a corporation kind of thing. I'm a big boy kind of status. It does give you protection. Over the years, it has become a very standardized type of business, and a lot of people use it, so it has more legalities in place, and it has gained its own independent status to be used. I like to use it. If you and I are going to be partners on something, let's set up an LLC, which becomes our pass-through corporation. Then you and I will put our corporations as the owners of that LLC. When that LLC makes $100,000 and we're going to split everything 50-50, $50,000 goes to you and you get taxed it however you want. $50,000 goes to me and I pay the taxes on it however I want. So I use the LLC more for a joint venture type of setup or for owning real estate. When I'm going to buy 10 homes, sometimes I may need to set up 10 different LLCs. It might sound very expensive, but when you look at what it is you're doing, where you're doing it, and why you're doing it, it might be 4, 5, 6 cents on the dollar that you're using to protect your asset. So it's well worth the establishment. Again, let's go back to the C corporation, because we're not going to discuss the others in detail as much, because the C is perhaps my favorite entity to set up. LLC would be number 2. I never ever recommend the S corporation to anybody that I deal with. To me, it just doesn't have a place for what we need to be doing with it. We want to create our own economy. We want to set up something solid from the beginning. I don't need an S corporation to do that. Now, with the C corporation, the biggest complaint that I hear is, oh, it's a double taxation kind of entity. That's very dangerous. I don't know if I want to deal with that. That tells me 2 things. Either that person heard enough information to be doubtful and dangerous to himself about, or herself, with what the information is telling them, or 2, they have no clue what they just said. Again, that is nothing more than just simply lack of education. That's why we're here. We're looking to start educating ourselves. Okay? If you set up the corporation properly, if it's done correctly, there is no problem with the double taxation. Let me give you an example. The only time that there's double taxation in the corporation is when it pays out a dividend. What does that mean? You're the only member in this corporation. Like I said earlier, maybe your spouse, your children, but you, as the owner of the C corporation, you should never, ever, ever declare dividends. The corporation makes $50,000. If it pays out $25,000 in the form of a dividend, this is what happens. The corporation will pay taxes on the $50,000, and then you, who received the $25,000 dividend, you will also pay taxes on that $25,000 on your personal schedule. So there's the double taxation. Let's see if we can solve this mystery. You're the only owner. You're getting paid $25,000 a year. Why don't you just make it in the form of a paycheck and get paid $2,000 a month? But you need more money. You want to get paid $3,000 a month. Well, don't declare a dividend for the difference. Just simply give yourself a pay raise. You're the boss. You can avoid the double taxation. If you own a C corporation and you're having a problem with double taxation, you either have horrible, horrible advice, or you shouldn't be doing business, because that's costing you money. So we want to avoid double taxation. It's very easy to do, because you don't want to take that dividend. You simply take it as a paycheck or a pay raise. Now, you don't need a lawyer. Here's a misconception. Other than, I believe it's either North Carolina or South Carolina, one of those. Other than that state, you do not need a lawyer to set up a corporation. You can do it yourself. Let's use Texas. You can go to the Secretary of State website, find the link up there, the button that says corporate or corporations or something relating to that. You click on it. It will walk you through how to set up a corporation. In Texas, you pay it online. It takes you all of about 10 minutes. And then when you submit your payment, you will get an email saying, oh, it's been submitted. The next day, you have a corporation. A few days later, maybe 5-6 days later, you'll get the paper in the mail. But they will actually send you a copy of what they're going to send you in the mail that very next day. You're incorporated that quick. It costs about $300 to incorporate in Texas. It costs about $800 to incorporate in California. It costs about $50 to incorporate in Missouri. So it depends where you're going to live, where you are living. When you should never incorporate outside of your state unless you're doing it in Delaware, Nevada, or Wyoming. And those are for tax purposes mainly. And those would be Nevada, Wyoming. Delaware, the only time that I ever recommend that somebody incorporate in Delaware, unless they live in Delaware, is if you have some way and some intention of taking that corporation public. If that corporation is going to go public, you want to be a Delaware corporation. Because Delaware has the best, supposedly, because it's been dealing with it the longest, the best law regarding corporations. Because corporate law in Delaware is mainly aimed at protecting the shareholder. Wyoming and Nevada law is mainly aimed at protecting the owner. So if you're going to go public, they want to be protected as shareholders. That's why they're going to invest in your company. That's why they want you to be in Delaware. Just a little bit of FYI, you do not need a lawyer. You do not need any of the companies or programs online. Not that I'm discouraging you from using them. I'm just telling you, it's very simple to do on your own. The only problem you're going to have, whether you do it yourself, whether you use one of those services, or whether you use a lawyer. Now I have the paperwork. Now I am officially John Doe Inc. What do I do now? How can I use, and what can I use, and what do I do, and what can I do in order to maintain myself as a corporation and not get in trouble? Because I've filed the articles of incorporation. That's what they're called, by the way, when you set up a C corporation or an S corporation, articles of incorporation. You have to make sure that you keep all the corporate activity separate, like we talked about. You have that folder. You don't want to mix it with your personal. You want to set up a separate bank account for that corporation. Don't go to McDonald's and use your corporate account to buy that, or go to Walmart and buy clothing with it for yourself or toys for the kids. That's not what the corporate bank account is for. Now, if you're at a meeting and it's a dinner meeting, a lunch meeting, or whatever, and you want to pay for that dinner, yes, you can use the corporate account at that point. If you're buying something for the business, yes, you can use that. But don't use it for personal items. These are the kind of things that you need to learn so that you can continue to earn and not have to pay it out and to keep going. I'll mention this again, but let me mention it right now. 65% of corporations that are established in the United States are worthless for asset protection purposes. Because most people violate that simple rule of don't mix, don't break what's called breaking the corporate veil. That veil protects you. Once you start using it as your alter ego, it kind of loses that shield, that veil, that protection for yourself. All right? So this is going to be your biggest obstacle, is what do I do to keep it set up correctly? I'm writing a few more articles. I'm going to put them on Make It and Keep It so that you'll be able to go there and you'll be able to figure out, okay, I need to keep these minutes. I need to have resolutions. I need to have this. It sounds very cumbersome. It's nothing more than, you know, when you're going to go to the store and you write up a grocery list, that's all it is. You're going to sit down, you're going to figure out what you're going to do with your business. You're writing it down on a piece of paper. That's your information that you need to put in that folder. You've thought about it, you put it in ahead of time, and you just put it in a folder. It did its own thinking. You were thinking as the head of that corporation at that moment. So it's all going to be on there for you to be able to research. And by the way, those of you who are already members of Make It and Keep It, we're going to be uploading a lot of these resolutions and a lot of these sample documentation that you can take and alter and fix so that you can be opening a bank account, borrowing money, lending money, buying property, whatever you need to do. So asset protection is the key. Here's another one that most people mess up on. When you sign a contract. When you sign a contract, you want to make sure that you sign that as the officer of that corporation. You're not signing it John Doe on behalf of John Doe. Okay? When you sign it, you're John Doe, Vice President of XYZ Inc. You're saying, I am not acting as me. I'm acting as the officer who's authorized to sign on behalf of this corporation. I am the mouthpiece for this corporation. In this way, you're giving notice. The reason for this is to give notice to the other party that they are not dealing with you on a one-on-one basis. They're dealing with you as a third-party mouthpiece for the corporation. So if they have an issue, they have to take that up with the corporation. So if you sign John Doe, that's bad. If you sign it as John Doe, Vice President of XYZ Inc., that's what we want to do. I had somebody ask me, will that protect me from being sued? No. If someone is going to sue XYZ Corporation, they're going to sue XYZ, they're going to sue you, they're going to sue your wife, they're going to sue anybody that they can get a hold of. Why? Because that's just the way the legal system works. You try to get as many people as you can so that if somebody falls out, there's somebody else left that you can collect from. If you've done it correctly and you signed as John Doe, VP or director or secretary or president, whatever, of XYZ, what's going to happen is you show up in court. The first argument your lawyer is going to make is, Your Honor, this case is between XYZ Inc. and the plaintiff, not John Doe and the plaintiff. And once the contract is produced and it shows that they had noticed that they were dealing with the corporation, not with you directly, most of the time you're going to be let go from that lawsuit. Now that doesn't protect you if you're doing something fraudulent, something intentional to harm or cause harm. That's going to, again, break that corporate veil. And like I said, 65% of corporations lose that protection because they mishandled the corporation somewhere along the line. The purpose for that corporation is to protect you under normal operating procedure. The normal course of business, something happened, got sued, that's all. That's the purpose of the corporation. So don't let that fall by the wayside, because now you're just opening up yourself for a lot of problems. Let's look something else that's very dear to a lot of people's heart. Now, this is not quite as big of a problem now as it used to be, because as it stands right now, your first $5 million from your estate are not subject to being taxed. However, it used to be $1 million, and this could very easily revert back to being $1 million. So the discussion here, we're going to keep it very brief, but essentially what it is we want to try to protect your assets so that when you die, your estate doesn't have to pay taxes on it. By the way, this is, you might have heard it called the death tax, and that's it. Even in death, we can't escape taxes, right? But if your children own your corporation and you die, that's not part of your estate. That already belongs to somebody else. You could set up a corporation under your children's name. You can run it and manage it for 25 years and get a paycheck. When you die, it's not part of your estate. It should not be subject to estate tax. Now, is that how it's going to work for everybody? You have to talk to an accountant or a lawyer who is familiar with that arena, because it's going to vary a little bit from state to state, because there are also state estate taxes that could apply. But as a general rule, again, this is information, not legal advice. As a general rule, if it's not owned by you, it is not part of your estate. If it is not part of your estate, it is not taxable upon your death. So again, this information is just something for you to consider, something that I wanted to throw out there. It's not a fix all, for all the issues that could come up with estate planning, but it's something for you to consider when you're setting up your corporation of who's going to be the owner. You, your children, grandchildren, how's that going to work? And how far can you do it? How do you have to do it? That requires a little more delving into every particular and unique situation. Let's move on to the big one, which is taxes. In some cases, the corporate tax may be less than the personal tax. In fact, it used to be less than the personal tax before Bush. Bush changed the personal tax. Now we're slightly less than the corporate. However, at certain levels, it is still better to be a corporation. It's most definitely better to be a corporation if you're going to be making more than $400,000 a year, because you don't want to be subject to the higher tax that Obama and Boehner and all those people are playing around with, and that's going to get worse. But there are other ways to reduce your taxes by being a corporation, that even if you have to pay an extra 1 or 2% at different levels, it is still well worth it, because you get the protection of the corporation, you get to set up a retirement account, you get to set up reimbursement accounts for, health purposes and whatnot. It can own your corporation, it can own your life insurance policy, it can be paying. All of these are expenses to the corporation that get deducted pre-tax before it is subject to the taxation, which is a lot of savings on you personally as well. When you're incorporated, you also avoid the self-employment tax. Self-employment tax is roughly 15.2, I think, or something like that. With a corporation, it's down to 7 point something. So there's a savings on various levels, even though you may have to pay slightly a higher tax here and there. But as a general rule, taxation is something that can very easily be controlled with a corporation. Now keep in mind, we're not looking to avoid taxes. Never ever avoid taxes. Avoiding taxes is a no-no. That's illegal. What we're looking to do is reduce taxes legally. We want to reduce our taxes, not avoid them. Let's move on to the privacy issue. Some people say, oh, I don't care about the privacy issue. Well, I would. Here's why I would be very concerned about the privacy issue. And it is because of this quote right here that I've been saying to people for many, many years. We say it and people seem to look at me kind of goofy because they think that I'm joking or I'm making it up. If you plan on being successful, plan on being sued. I would rather protect myself and never get sued than not be protected and get sued. 1 in 3 business owners get sued every year. 2 out of 3 get sued more than once. 80% of those are frivolous lawsuits. If people perceive that you have a lot of money, guess what they're going to do? They're going to go after you. Do you know what is the #1 millionaire maker in the United States? Frivolous lawsuit settlements. Simply sue somebody and try to settle and get something out of them. $5,000, $10,000, $50,000, $100,000, because it's cheaper than going through the court system and taking care of the whole entire lawsuit. So why would you want to walk around with a bullseye on your chest that says, sue me? If you do it right, people should see that you're operating a corporation because you're running your own business, so they're not going to be stupid about that. But we're not going to keep the money there. You're not going to be living that high lifestyle out of that corporation. Your money's going to be protected under another asset protection entity, which is kind of like your backup safe in the backup bank that's placed in the basement and nobody knows about it. Totally legal. Nothing illegal about it. That's by legislation that it's there. Let's move on to credit. This is probably the one that most people think of when they think of corporations, because they think, oh man, I can set up a corporation, I have bad credit, I can get immediate good credit from that thing, and I can go out and borrow all this money. Not so fast. Yes, a corporation can build roughly 100 times more credit power than you can under your own personal credit scenario, regardless of the income. But a corporation is able to do this because it's perceived as a little more sophisticated establishment. The credit that is built with that corporation is perceived as somebody who has brought on some learning, some education to set this thing up, especially when you have your business plan and you have your balance sheet in place and you have your income that's coming in and out, you have your office set up properly. When you have all your ducks in a row, essentially, they're going to look at you as a little more sophisticated. They're going to trust you a little more. When you have the history, the more the history, the bigger the power for being able to borrow. Generally speaking, 2 years of history is what most banks are going to look for. If you've been around less than 2 years, they're not going to be quite as eager to trust you with a loan. So what we do is little bit at a time, as we start making some money and we start dumping it into that corporation and that bank account, we start borrowing small loans, 5,000 here, 2,000 there, 3,000 there, 10,000 here, in and out, in and out, in and out for 3 months, 6 months. Yeah, it's going to cost us maybe $200, $300, $400 to pay all those loans back as far as paying interest on them. But what we're doing is we're building a rapport with the banks. They're going to get to the point where they trust us. By the time we hit 2 years, 3 years, whatever it is for us, we're going to be off and running. Because our borrowing power has been built and is going to be taking us very fast into the direction that we want to get into. Now, these are the overviews. If we go any further than that, we're not going to be able to cover all the other subjects. But these are the main topics that you need to understand about corporations. Not only does it protect your assets, but it is a great fuel generator to help you make more money. And we're going to be getting into the make it part of it here pretty quick. So right now what we've done is we've just gone over the just of the corporations, kind of the shell of it, and what we are looking to do with it. What you saw in that blueprint, that protection, that reduction, that bank building, that's what we just gone over. Those are the main points. Once you understand those, as you learn about those, everything else falls in place for you. It will not be a mystery anymore. Again, we're going to have more articles up there. There are some articles up there already about it. If you want to go and just start reading and checking it out, and then from there you can proceed however you like. If you don't want to do it on your own and you want us to help you, you can always go and click on that link right there, the Cardinal Rule of Money, and it will take you to that point. All right. So I think, let's see, we've been going here for about 15 minutes or so. So let's move on to our beautiful castle here. We've already covered the corporation. We've already discussed, again, the credit, the asset protection, the other people's money aspect of that. But what we didn't discuss too much on the credit, because credit mainly is involved in the banking side. And the banking side is nothing more than a corporation, like I said, that builds up its creditability and the power of that credit to borrow, and it brings it into the forefront. And that's what we're going to do. Go back to that blueprint that gives us our base. So we're going to start with number 2 down here at My International Bank. Now that we have our shell, we have our silo in place to protect us, we're going to start looking into the money situation. Again, here's the notice. Discussing banking, discussing that type of information does fall into the realm of financial advice and legal advice and accounting advice. I'm not doing any of that. I'm just giving you information for you to start looking into how to create your own economy. Where do you need to start? What is the basis? What is the floor, with the minimum that you need to have in order to start going? Little by little, I'm hoping to be moving a little fast. So if I'm talking kind of quick, it's because I'm trying to get as much information as possible. For those of you who know me, I hate to under deliver. I hate to leave you with just part of the information, because I'm a very big believer that most people in this world know enough information to be dangerous to themselves. I don't want to leave you in that no man's land. But what I'm hoping happens here is that you take this information and that you can move forward with it, and that you, again, it helps you out, whether you have to go to Make It and Keep It, or whether you have to email me at member@makeitandkeepit.com and get an answer back, or get an article written about it to help you. You let me know. But right now we're going to start with the banking side of things. This is an overlap with corporations, and what we need is we need to gain quick access to money. I don't want red tape. I don't want a high interest rate. I don't want to have to negotiate. Now, we will still have to do some of that, but I want to be able to have access and control of that myself. Like I said, we're going to be setting up the corporation little by little. We're going to be doing small loans here and there. We want to do it not at one bank, but maybe at 2, 3, 4, 5 different banks. Don't ever put yourself in a all or nothing kind of scenario. So set up 2 or 3 different bank accounts. Spread that money around. Borrow from bank A, borrow from bank B, borrow from bank C. Let them all get to know you and rely that, hey, this guy borrows and he pays it back. She borrows and she pays it back. Okay? Little by little, they'll get to trust you. Pretty soon, you can just call them up on the phone. This is the part that just was flabbergasting to me. When I first made this call, I was shaking because I didn't know how this was going to work. I had a great real estate deal. I called up and I said, hey, Roger, I got a piece of property. I need X amount of dollars. What do I need to do to get this thing going? He says, oh, you're all right. Just come on in and sign for it. We got you all taken care of. I'm like, what? Now, I said that to myself, that unbelief or disbelief or just, oh, are you kidding me? But I had been dealing with this guy. He was a small banker in town, but I had been dealing with him for about 5, 6 years. I had done several properties, buy and sell, and I had been paying them off and whatnot. So it got to the point where I just had to make a phone call, and he had approved me for a loan. All I had to do was just give him the parameters of the property I was buying, but they trusted me. So we need to have that kind of access. That's one kind. But 2, we want to build up our own bank. We want to have our own reserves so that when we're buying and we're lending and we're doing stuff, we can just do it at our own leisure whenever we want to. So one of your corporations, now something I haven't addressed yet. I mentioned corporations, and I've done that several times. When we discuss corporations, I discussed plural as opposed to singular. As you start to grow, you're going to need more than one corporation. Don't let that scare you. Okay, so you only have 1 child now. You're going to have 2. You're going to have 3. I know people that have 20, 30 corporations. Maybe a little excessive, depending on what they're doing. But as we go through here, you'll see how these corporations start to come into play. One of them is going to be designated as nothing more than just banking purposes. It does nothing but handles your banking. It cannot get sued by anybody unless it's a bank that you borrowed money from. And then if we do it correctly, you'll never get into that financial problem because you will always have money to pay back any loan that you take out. So the corporation will build up its credit and it will generate the borrowing power that we want. And we want to get to the point where eventually we have one corporation. That's all it does. It handles our borrowing power. It gives us the control of the money. That's where you gain the power over your economic situation. He who controls the money controls anything he wants. Or she. I keep saying he, but whoever controls the money controls the entire situation. Problems are not, other people's problems are not your problem anymore. I know a lot of people talk about the 1%ers. There's no such thing. It's 10%. 10% of the people control 90% of the money. And that number works into everything in our lives. They have borrowing power. They have that fuel. They have the money to make more money. This is what we're going to cover briefly here with the banking discussion. Collecting daily deposits is crucial. The borrowing power, crucial. Lending to yourself, incredibly crucial. Taking control, the ultimate position we're working to get to, control. These are the 4 highlights of the banking power that you're going to generate by having your own corporation. So let's look at the collecting the daily deposits. We are going to begin collecting our money from our operations to begin with. Now, you're going to probably, let's say you have nothing. Let me step back. You have nothing right now. You're going to get started on Monday. We're going to start with the Create Your Own Economy. You're not in real estate. You're not in the stock market. You don't own a business. You have a job, but you have about $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. We're going to open up a corporation. We're going to open a bank account. We're going to put $20,000. Let's start with $10,000 in that corporation. We're going to take that $10,000 and we're going to use it in the least expensive, the quickest method, the simplest way of making money every single day. That's what we're going to discuss when we get to the make it part. But let's say we're starting to make money and every day we're putting money into our account. Every day we're putting money in our account. So we get cash in the corporation. We start training the banks like I talked earlier with the small loans. Then we move on to bigger loans. We do this for 6 months, a year, 2 years, however we want to, and however long it takes. But what we want to do is we want to collect deposits into our bank account just like any other bank that's out there is collecting. Every day, go sit outside any bank. Every day there's somebody walking in, going up to the cash register, the cash counter rather, to the cashier, giving them either a check or an envelope full of money, getting a slip of paper and walking out. They made their deposit. We want to do the exact same thing. Let me fill you in on something that most people don't know about banks. Taking deposits is worthless to them except for the fact they borrow against it. If a bank has $1 million deposited today, that $1 million does nothing for them. This is how they make it work for them. They have to keep 40% of that as reserve. So they can take the $600,000 that came in and they can go to the Fed and they can borrow 9 times against that. So they take $600,000 that came in and they go to the Fed and they say, hey, we want to borrow $5.4 million so that we can run our business. And the Fed says, okay, here you go. They're borrowing it at 0.25% right now. Can you imagine borrowing $5.5 million and you're paying 0.25% on that? That's like getting it free. That's like stealing money. Because what they do is they bring back this money. They bring it to their bank. You walk in, you say, I want to borrow $100,000, $200,000 to buy a house or to fund a business or to buy a car. They say, okay, we want 4%, 5%, 10%, 18%. And they'll give you every excuse in the book to charge you the higher interest rate. Let's just say they charge 5%. Let's make it 5.25%. They borrowed it at 0.25%. They're making 5% return on that money. They took your money, they leveraged your money, they borrowed against your money, and they came back and they lent you your money, and they're charging you interest on it. Do we see a problem there? Somebody took my money, leveraged it to their profit, to their power, 9 times what I gave them. And they came back and they're asking me for interest to borrow my own money back? Pretty audacious. Well, why don't we do the same thing? Why aren't we taking money and why aren't we leveraging that money to our benefit? When we get to options, I'm going to show you how you can take every dollar, not 60% of what's coming in, but every single dollar. And you can leverage it not 9 times, but 25 times and make a return better than the 5% that the banks are making. Sounds crazy. But hey, look at what the rich are doing. Do exactly what the rich are doing. And guess what will happen? No one will ever complain about the 1%ers because you're going to be part of them pretty quick. It's not luck. It's not stealing. It is not, just happens to come your way. It takes a little bit of effort. It takes learning and earning, applying what you learn in an appropriate way in order to make it work for you. So we're going to take those daily cash deposits, and we're going to make them work for us. And we want to build our borrowing power. So yes, I'm willing to go back to the bank, borrow my own money at 5% or 5.25%, because I know I'm going to be making 10% return a month on it. So I'm going to borrow $1 million and I'm going to pay, let's just say 10%. And I know how to make 10% return of that per month. So out of 12 months, I have to work 1 month to pay back the bank, and the other 11 months, I can keep everything I make. I'll take the game. I'll play it. That's what we're going to do. The borrowing power is the key. Making the cash deposits, receiving those cash deposits, are worthless to us if we don't know what to do with them. We need to be able to leverage them by borrowing against them. We need to learn how to make bigger loans to ourselves. We need to make sure that we understand how the big banks are doing it so that we can do the exact same thing. When you borrow from the bank, you have to pay an interest. Why don't you lend to yourself? Can you imagine doing this? You have a corporation that is making, or that is going to be making, quite a bit of money. It's going to make 2, 10, 20 million. It doesn't matter what it's going to make. A lot of money. But you know what? We don't want that kind of money sitting in that corporation because of tax ramifications. We don't have a lot of expenses there to legally reduce our taxes the way we want. But we want to make a lot of money here because it's a great opportunity. But we want to borrow funds. If we go to the bank, they're going to charge us a little bit of money. But we have our other corporation that has money. That other corporation has enough money that we can borrow from ourselves or from our buddy, right? We have Corporation A and Corporation B. Corporation B is going to be doing the work. Corporation B goes to Corporation A, say, hey, I need to borrow $300,000. Corporation A says, oh, that's no problem. How about we do it at 8.5%? So, well, I can go to the bank and get it for 5.5%. Yeah, well, okay, go through the red tape. So Corporation B says, no, I don't want to go through that. I'll take it from you at 8.5%. Corporation A either has the $300,000 sitting on hand, or it's going to go to the bank because it already has its credit buying power and borrowing power in place, borrow it without the red tape, get it at 5.25%, turn around and lend it at 8.5%, and make 3.5% return for doing nothing. You go and buy a building. You go and buy a house. You buy a piece of property. You buy out another business. You can't buy anything 100% anymore. You pretty much have to put it down about 10-20% to get some of this stuff going. But we don't want equity left in there. Well, I'm going to wrap this back around to the asset protection. We don't want any equity left anywhere because we know, one, how to do, what to do and how to do business with our money to make us more money. So having equity in something is worthless. That's just dead money. So we want to leverage everything 100%. We're going to buy a building worth $500,000. The bank is willing to give us 80% loan on that. So they're willing to give us $400,000 loan, but we're still going to have $100,000 worth of equity. Somebody slips at that building and they sue us. Guess what's going to happen? They're going to be able to access that $100,000 because if they get the building, they sell it for $500,000, they pay back the first loan, they keep the $100,000. Well, I don't want to expose myself to that kind of liability or that kind of loss. So we're going to borrow $400,000 from Bank of America to buy the building. We're going to borrow another $100,000 from our own company, our other company, the one that's private that nobody knows about. And now when you look at my business, this building that I just bought, you look at it and say, my God, this thing is worth $500,000 and it has a $500,000 loan on it, a first and a second. If I sue and I win and I get this property, I'm going to get this piece of property that has no equity. So I'm going to have to turn around and sell a piece of property and I have to pay back the first and the second. And if there's anything left, I get to keep it. There's no asset protection if you don't have that ability to completely cover your equity and get it out of the way. Lend to yourself. Take out any equity that is remaining anywhere in any property. Let me step back. I do a lot of stepping back because not everybody falls into wanting to or needing to, for whatever reason, create their own economy and be able to leverage and protect themselves. If you have no desire, which is not anybody here, to manage your money and make your money work for you, If that was you, you would not be here listening to this presentation. But those people out there that are not interested in doing that, those people that don't know how to make their money work for them, don't know how to manage their money, they need to pay off their home as soon as they can. Because they need to have a place to live. In case something happens, they don't want to have to be struggling to make the payments. If you know how to make your money, make money for you, you should not have your house paid off. You should not have any investment property paid off. I have my home right here. My interest rate is 3.25%. Where else am I going to borrow at 3.25% and make 10% return a month? I work for a week. I pay off the interest rate on this house. I work the other 51 weeks for me. How much easier of a loan am I going to get other than that? You can't. Lending to yourself, the borrowing power is incredible. Again, a lot of people still ask me. I will explain it, and they will still ask me, why are you loaning from one company to the other? I'm loaning from one company to the other to protect the other. The other one has equity in place. We're going to protect that. We want to eliminate anything from being lost. We want to take control over our economic situation. He who controls the money controls the power. That control over your financial future is power. Now, let's move into other arenas and discuss making money. So this presentation here that we're going to jump into right now is how to make money. This is our castle. We've already talked about the corporation, the credit, the asset protection, the other people's money, the deposits in the bank. We're going to talk about the front pillar right there, which is the stock market and the options. Remember, on our blueprint, it's that number 3. I started with the stock market. I had a lot of paper profit, but can pay bills with paper profit. So therefore, I had to figure out how to make money that is real, that I can pay bills with, instead of just saying, hey, look how good it looks on paper. Again, we're talking about finances, we're talking about legalities, we're talking about accounting. I'm not acting as any of those as far as accounting, legal advice, financial advice, just information purposes only. That's all we're doing here, so that you can get a head start or a place to start to do your research to create your own economy. Send me any questions you may have. I'm hoping that I'm covering a lot of topics and a lot of questions that you may have and that may be coming up. But again, it's a very broad overview because each one of these topics can take hours and hours and hours and discussion almost endlessly, especially when it comes to a particular specific situation. So if you have any question, please go ahead and email me. I will get back to you, I promise. This is something that I've been preaching. The cardinal rule of money is very simple. Money is always working. That's essentially what it says. And who said it says that? Me. I looked it up. I can't find anybody else discussing it other than me. And so I've made it into this is what Create Your Own Economy is all about. I've always called it the cardinal rule of money. And I like the way that it sounds because it is very straightforward. Money is always working, never needs a break, never needs a vacation, never gets sick, never calls in sick, never complains, never talks back. But the problem with the cardinal rule of money is most people don't apply it at all, and when they do apply it, they misapply it. You need to make sure that it is working for you. That money must be working for you. And when no money is working for you, it must be making more money. You have to learn how to make it make you more money. And once you make it, you have to learn how to keep it. And we've already gone over how to keep it. Corporations is how we keep it. And then corporations, the way that we keep it helps us to make it by setting up our bank. But there's a question that we should always ask ourselves. Anytime you deal with money, you must ask yourself, how can I make this work for me? If you're not asking that question every time you think of a dollar bill or you see a dollar bill, you're wasting money and you're not using the cardinal rule of money. Now let me be clear on this. This applies to whether you're putting money to work as like an investment or a trade, or whether you're reducing taxes. This applies from both sides of the spectrum. How can I make this work for me when it comes to an investment or trade? This is a make it question. How can I make this dollar make me money? I have a quarter sitting on the desk. How can I make that quarter work for me? If you have to give it to your son to go dig a hole outside so you can plant a tree, you just made that quarter make you some money. Because it saved you having to pay somebody else $200 to dig the hole. Or it allowed you to sit and make more money and do something worthwhile and worth more money than digging a hole, while your son did it for a quarter. By the way, if you have a son that will dig a hole for a quarter, I have a lot of holes I need dug. This question here, how can I make this work for me from the tax savings perspective? This is why you need a strategy type of tax person or accountant. If you're asking it from this perspective, is how can I keep it? You can have $1 million obligation for taxes and work it so that you only need to pay $200,000. That $800,000 that we did not pay is not avoiding taxes. That is saving taxes, reducing taxes, legally doing it. The IRS knows about it. The state knows about it. The legislation is in place for you to do it. In fact, it is your obligation, if you run a corporation, to do that. In my opinion, it's your obligation to do that if you're just doing the taxes for your household. Now, if you want to pay more taxes, go ahead. You know, on the IRS forms, there's a line that says other. That's where you can put whatever other amount of money you want to pay in taxes. Nobody's stopping you. This is why I had a problem when Warren Buffett came out and said, oh, you know, Americans need to be paying more taxes. Mr. Buffett, I respect your success rate. I respect what you've done, but if you want to pay more taxes, go ahead and put it down on that line. And I'm tired of hearing how you're paying less taxes than your secretary. If you are so distraught over the fact, start paying more taxes. And this is the same man who's telling you this, and yet he has a $6 million obligation to the IRS, and he's been fighting them in court for 5 years. Kind of a double standard. Because you see, the tendency is to keep it. The tendency, especially if you know how, is to keep it. The tendency, if you know how, is to take it and make money for you. He will probably reach a settlement, and he will pay quite a bit of that $6 million he owes. But guess how much money he has made in 5 years based off that $6 million? He has been borrowing the $6 million for 5 years at practically nothing. The man is not stupid. He built that company from nothing into a multi-billion-dollar business. He knows exactly what he's doing. Why aren't you doing the same thing? I'm not telling you to go fight by the IRS, by the way. But just ask yourself that question. How can I make this work for me? Make it work for you from the make it side. Make it work for you from the keep it side. And you're set to go. So we already know from the corporations how we keep it. And now what we need to do is establish our own bank by being able to access our own money. And what we need to do is we need to learn how to make it, how to generate income in any economic condition. Again, this is very simple. As a concept, it's called the cardinal rule of money. Money is always working. For those of you who have read the parable in the Bible, Jesus tells the parable about the king who was going to be traveling for a couple years. So he brings in 3 servants, gives one talent, the other one 5, and the other one 10. And when he comes back, the one that had 10 made it 20, the one that had 5 made it 10, the one that had 1 went and buried it. So it was taken away from him. And as so eloquently put to me by, oddly enough, Andre, who's here, he says, oh, so that would be like the cardinal sin instead of the cardinal rule. I like that. Number 2 and number 3, the one that had the 5 talent and 10 talent, they used the cardinal rule of money and made their money make money for them or for the king. The other one that had the 1 talent, he committed the cardinal sin of not applying the cardinal rule of money. Very simple. Always ask yourself, how can I make it make money for me? This is how we do it. Remember the flow chart, the blueprint that we had? The picture that was developed from the puzzle? Options, real estate, and business ownership. Options. This is the simple and reliable daily cash flow generator. I've had people tell me, no, it's Forex. I've had people tell me, no, it's bonds. I've had people tell me, no, it's futures. No, it's commodities. Listen, there's a lot of ways of making money every single day. But I am not looking for any way of making money. I am looking for a simple and reliable cash flow generator. Forex moves 5 times as fast as options. Futures moves 20 times as fast as options. You can get killed in the first 5 minutes. You say, what? You haven't even said what happened yet, and you're done. By the time you figure out those 2 words, what happened, you just lost everything in between those 2 words. What? Who? Happened. You're done. Options, we can control the risk. Options, we can manipulate the trades. Options, we are more powerful than the Fed. Let me explain. Why are we dealing with options? Who cares why options? What is an option? That's what somebody told me. I said, options. You want to know why options? He says, who cares why options? What the heck is an option? An option is nothing more than a bet. It's a side bet against a stock. Let me give you a couple of stocks that we like to bet on, for lack of better words. Google, Apple, Amazon, Baidu, Priceline, Netflix. The ones that move very fast, very far. Apple, yesterday, for example, moved $7 up and $6 down. $13 movement. Priceline had a $17 movement. Google at one point was up $13 and then went -5. I like that. It gives us a lot of opportunity to make money. But we're betting on it. It is nothing of importance. Option has no value at all to anybody except you and me, the one that bought it and the one that sold it. That's it. You want to know what else an option is? It's a license to print money and fabricate assets out of thin air. Does this sound familiar? If you followed the news in any way, shape, or form for the last few years, if you want to know what caused our economic downturn, it is the license to print money and fabricate assets out of thin air. No, it's not the options world that created it. It's the Fed. It is Congress. It is legislation. Those people can't even balance their checkbook. Do you know that 98% of them have more than 8 checks bounced? They can't even balance their checkbook. And they're trying to tell you and me how to make money and how to legislate it. You are just as powerful as the Fed. Remember that bank? They took that money and they went and they borrowed 9 times against that. 9 times against that. You can simply create an asset. The bank can't even create an asset. They have to borrow it from the Fed. You can create an asset with an option. A lot of people call this gambling. Well, let me differentiate a little bit here. Gambling is when you walk up to the craps table and you have a gut feeling. I think it's going to roll snake eyes. Let's just bet on that. That's gambling. What we're dealing with is an educated decision. When you are trading, especially if you go through my program here under Create Your Own Economy, it is geared to one thing and one thing only: risk reduction and almost elimination. And it is all based on educated decisions. You don't get into any trade unless you have a minimum of 70% chance of success. I'll take 7 to 3 odds any day. When you're trading your own economy, regardless of how you create your own economy, make sure that the odds are always in your favor. You know why we can't do the Forex? It's not as easy to fabricate. It's not as easy to create an asset out of thin air. You will see how powerful this is when we get to real estate, because we use almost identical setup in real estate. But in real estate, we can't fabricate it. You can't lease or rent a house that doesn't exist to somebody. So although we're making an educated decision, 90% of the people in the stock market are losing money. So why are we jumping in? Because we're part of the 10%. How would you like 9 people throwing money out the window and you're the only one down there trying to catch it? For every 9 people that are throwing their money out the window, there's 1 person down there trying to catch it. Do you think they're going to make some money? You know what the difference is between the 10% that's trying to catch the money and the 90% that's throwing it? The 90%, they went up into the building to try to find where the money's coming from, to try to stop it. All the doors are locked. You can't get in. They're solid steel doors. They're just simply in those rooms dumping money to the outside. The 10% is standing outside saying, okay, I'm here to catch it. We know where to be, and we have a 70% chance of collecting on those monies that are falling out those windows. 90% of the people in the market are losing money. That's just an astounding number. I was told that this number will scare people, that I shouldn't mention it. If I don't mention it to you, I'm lying to you. You need to know that 90% of the people are losing money. And those 90% know enough. Remember, I've said this several times. They know enough to be dangerous to themselves. They know enough to go and try something and lose money. You didn't cause it. I didn't cause it. But you know what? If somebody's willing to give me money, I'll take it. This is your advantage. This is taking advantage of an opportunity, of a problem that's existing in our society today, in our economy today. Don't make it your problem. Learn how to do it, apply it properly, and be part of that 10%. Does that 90 to 10 sound familiar? Remember, we referenced it earlier. 10% of the population controls 90% of the wealth. That's why wealth distribution does not work. It does not work. If you took all the money in this country and you distributed it evenly across the population, it's estimated that within 12 months it will be back to the 90-10 distribution. %10 of the population controls it. So any wonder that they know how to make this money? That 10%. Is there any wonder what they're doing? There shouldn't be any more wonder now. We've discussed it several times already. They've learned and they know how to earn. They know how to apply it properly. They know how to keep it. They know how to protect it. They know how to make it work for them. They apply the cardinal rule of money. You should never ever complain about the 1%, like I stated earlier, when technically we know it's closer to 10%. Because if you do this properly, if you set up your economy correctly, you will be part of that 1 or 10%, however you want to look at it. 99% of that 1%, or the 10%, however you want to look at it, those people earned their money. Very few people inherited their money that are wealthy today. And they think that they're out of touch. The only thing that they're out of touch with is not sitting on their laurels and thinking that, hey, somebody's going to take care of me. There are some people that definitely need our help. There are some people that need our help, and I agree we should help them. But you know what? For every one person that needs help, 8 or 9 people do not need it, and they're stealing and robbing the system, and they're robbing the ones that truly need it. I know people in all state of condition, health-wise, financial-wise, and they're out there working, trying to get ahead. They're not saying, hey, can you take care of me? Nothing is ever going to replace learning and earning. The ones that can't help themselves, yes, we need to help them. But believe me, they're far less than what the world wants you to think it is. And you know who they are in your community? Much better than the government knows who they are. And you can monitor and make sure that your help, your money, your food, whatever it is you're doing to help those needy, are getting to the people that need it. This is just one simple and reliable way for you to generate cash on a daily basis and earn your wealth. I think options is the best way to do it. So again, why options? It has a very, very low cash entry requirement. A lot of people tell you, hey, come on in, you just need $2,000, you know. You can make money all over the place. $2,000, you know, that's not a lot of money. It is a lot of money when you're going to lose it. It is a lot of money if you don't know what to do with it. And I do not recommend you come in. If all you have is $2,000 to trade, you're not ready to trade. Whatever money you put into any investment, I don't care if it's options, real estate, a business, a new car, anything, you have to be willing to lose it. Not that we want to, but if you lose it, it cannot break you. You cannot put money that you need for living purposes into the system to get it going. Whatever you put in, plan on it's going to stay there for 12 months so that it can multiply itself, it can grow exponentially, it can compound so that you can start making a living off of it. Give it time to grow. You don't put that hole that we had the child dig the hole for, that tree, and we planted it. You're not going to go out the next day or the next week and start collecting fruit off of that tree. It needs to grow. It needs to grow those roots. You need to let this thing grow. I'm recommending 12 months. I know people that have done it in 6. So we got to be careful of what we're shooting for. This is not a get-rich-quick scheme. This is a very thought out, very organized system that you must follow. Now, if you already own a business, it doesn't mean you can't do this. If you're already in real estate, it doesn't mean you can't do this. It just means that you need to make sure that you start at some point here, rather quickly, dealing with options. Take some money, especially at least $10,000, put it in that options world, and let it start multiplying those deposits for you so that you can start fabricating property, so you can start making money, so you can start growing at an exponential rate. Under the proper management rules that we utilize. Now, you can do whatever you want, but this is my recommendation, the way I teach all of my members. If you have $10,000 in the account, the maximum you're going to put in any one trade is 1,000, 10%. The maximum out of that 10,000 that you're ever going to risk for a loss on any one trade is 1.5%. That's it. You have to have a risk management in place. Otherwise, we're going to be in trouble. I don't mind risking $150 to make some pretty good money. And I'm going to show you some examples here of one trade. Let me actually tell you about a trade that just happened, when was it? I want to say it was Tuesday. Got in at 8:54, got out at 9:10. What is that, 16 minutes? Got in, invested at $2.45, sold it at $3.55. That generated $1.10 profit per share. We always talk in terms of 1,000 shares, just for round number purposes. That's $1,100 in 16 minutes. Does it always happen? No. Sometimes it's bigger. Sometimes it's less. But on average, we're shooting for about $100 profit per day, or roughly $2,000 profit per month. That's our minimum that we're shooting for. That's $24,000 a year. It's not bad for a part-time job. If you do it right, you'd be doing that per week. Once you learn it, how to earn it, how to apply it properly. It is the simplest and fastest way to generate cash deposits in your bank. We can make a tremendous amount of money, just like that example I showed you. It is the easiest way to print money, just like the Fed. You have to play the game that everybody else is playing and making money. If it's legal for them, it's legal for you. And if you know what, if you're just mad at the world and you don't want to talk to anybody, you don't have to. All you have to do is click a mouse a couple times. That's it. Let me give you an example of a trade and compare what I'm talking about between an option and a stock purchase. Remember, I mentioned earlier that we're not only leveraging you when we set up a business, but when we deal with options, we're also leveraging your time and your money. Let me give you an example. Here's Baidu. Baidu is the equivalent of Google for China. This is the stock purchase equivalent. If we were to buy 3,000 shares of Baidu, it would cost $298. This is back when that trade was made, by the way. It's not right now. Right now, Baidu, as of this market right now, is only trading at $89 a share. That's because it split 10 for 1 about a year and a half, 2 years ago. But it would cost you $298 per share. That's $894,000 to get into this trade. I'm sorry, it would have cost you, yeah. And then when you get out of that trade, it would cost $921,000. So you're generating $26,940 or 3% return on your investment. $27,000 is not a bad return. And that's a 60-minute trade, by the way. It was moving like crazy. Again, we trade the stocks that move very fast for us. This one made 3% return on the investment, or $27,000. On the other hand, the exact same trade, exact same time in the option world, it only cost $6.20 to get into the trade to control 1,000 shares, and that was $18,600. A slight difference between $18,600 and $894,000. So you're leveraging quite a bit of money here. Then we're going to turn around, we're going to sell it for $20,700 and generate $2,100 in profit. Yes, $2,100 is not as good as $27,000. But guess what? I made 11% return on my option, while you made 3% return on your stock. You invested $894,000 and made 3% return. I invested $18,600 and I made 11%. You see the leverage? You see the power? And here's the thing. You had to go and buy something tangible. You actually invested in a stock. I simply made a bet, a side bet against your stock. I made a better return on my bet against your stock than you made on your stock. I made more money on something that doesn't exist than you made on something that actually does exist. Doesn't seem kind of fair, does it? Hey, I didn't create the rules. It's legal. I will make 11% against your 3% any day. You can risk $894,000 to my $18,000 any day. I'm perfectly happy. You can take your $27,000 any day. I'm perfectly happy with my 2. With options, you can begin making money almost immediately. On average, the people that go through my program start trading in 3 months. On average. I have someone that started at 2 weeks. They hadn't even finished the class yet. The class is 4 weeks long. 2 weeks into it, he started making trades. He hasn't had a losing trade yet. Some people pick it up that fast. I've had people wait a year. Why a year? He didn't want to start until that point. You see, when you learn anything with the Create Your Own Economy system, when you establish your economic system, your future under that umbrella, under that heading, that blueprint, you're not the one changing. You're the one that's evolving. Let's make a distinction here. I don't want you to go from being conservative to being aggressive, or from aggressive to conservative. You have to stay with your nature, who you are, what you are. You cannot change. It's like the old saying, you can't, change the stripes on a tiger, or whatever that saying is. We're not going to be able to alter your essence and who you are. All we're going to do is we're going to take it and we're going to refine who you are. We're going to refine it with education. We're going to refine it with the proper application of that education to enhance your goals. You see, I cannot make the trades that Warren Buffett makes because his goals are totally different than mine. He can afford to put $5 billion into a company and wait 2 years while it goes against him because he doesn't care. Eventually it will come back, and he can buy some more on top of that $5 billion to make him $20 billion. He's more of a long-term investor, and he wants to own the company. He just bought Heinz ketchup. He's looking into the tangible. He's looking into the real thing. I'm not. I don't want to own anything. I just want to control it, take the money out of it, and be on my way. I don't want to own anything. I just want to generate money. Generate cash every day. It has an incredible rate of return. My 11% to your 3%. And I don't need to have as much money as you. We're going to go over to this part here, the zero risk trades. There's a zero risk tolerance trade in the market, and there's a zero risk actual trade in the stock market. We've already discussed the power to print money. We'll come back to that also. But we need to generate cash flow regardless of what the market's doing. I'm going to show you a chart here, hopefully that will explain to you and clarify what that means. Whether the market goes up or down or sideways, it doesn't matter. We're going to make money. We're going to be in control. So let's begin here by making money almost immediately. Like I said, on average 3 months, the people that go through the program. How long will it be for you? I don't know. Whether you go through my program, whether you look up things on your own, it's up to you. But you can start reading some articles on Make It and Keep It to get a head start of what should you be looking at. And we're going to discuss that when we get to generating money in any economic direction. You'll get an idea of what we're talking about. But you need to come up with a system where you're researching and you're learning. But I want you to be careful. Most books are going to teach you the theory, but not the reality. Theoretical approaches are very dangerous. They don't give you the proper application of the information that you're looking at. Nothing is going to beat live experience and learning. That's why we have the trading pit, because people come in there and that's where they're listening and they're watching the market live as it happens, and that's where they're making their trades. But learning the theory, what happens is they will almost always skip the risk management part of trading. And you know, you don't need me to tell you When there's $100 on the floor, pick it up and put it in your pocket. I think that's kind of self-explanatory. What you need me for, or what you need the information that you're reading, regardless of where you're getting it, is you need somebody to say, hey, when you see this happen, that's a danger sign. Avoid that risk. You need the real application. You need the risk management setup of what is happening. That's what you need from your system, from your research, from your programs, from your learning approach here. Concentrate on the risk management. In August of last year, Priceline was releasing its earnings. Theoretically, we had a spread, a trade on both sides of the stock. Again, we made a bet. We're going to go over that spread in a little bit. Not that specific one, but what a spread is. But in any case, we were in that. If we had followed the theoretical approach to that trade, we would have lost $2,400 on the trade. But knowing how to manipulate the trade, how to realistically trade it, we got out of the trade in 4 days and generated $62,000 in profit instead of suffering a $2,400 loss. Based on the theory, you would have lost. Based on the reality, you made $62,000. In fact, you didn't even have any money invested in it because of the way the trade was set up. It was a credit setup. You had been given $2,400 to begin with. All you had to do was try to maintain it. The only way you could maintain it was knowing how to manipulate the trade. And by manipulating it, it generated $62,000 worth of income. So we can begin making money almost immediately. But that is based on your timeline, whenever you're ready to do it. But you got to know how to do it. Don't follow the theory. Any theory you read, make sure that you look for what is the risk management for this theory. Not what are the risks. What is the risk management? How do we guard against that risk? We want to generate cash daily. That's our goal. That's why we're doing options. That's why it's the first tier on our blueprint. It's going to come into the bank every day and make a deposit. Every day it's going to come in and make a deposit. It's a great rate of return. Remember when I showed you this? You can make 3% off of 900 grand. I can make 11% off of 18,000 in the same time frame on the same stock. When I can make more money off of betting against the real thing, you got to start thinking twice. This is what I tell people that come into my program. This is our goal. We want to make $100 a day. Let's say you start out with $10,000. We're going to make $100 a day. That's our goal. There's roughly 220 trading days in a year. So let's say we meet our average, which, by the way, is not that difficult. You will generate $22,000 for the year. That's a 220% return on your investment. You start out with $10,000, you made an extra $22,000. At the end of the year, you have $32,000 in that account. Imagine moving forward with that. Let's look at the zero risk trade that we talked about. We're not going to go into great detail on this because it does get a little complicated, but let me say this. The more money you have, the less risky trades you can make. It's like when you go to the bank. Go to the bank and ask them for a $50,000 loan. If you don't need it, or if you have enough money sitting around or enough collateral, they'll give you the $50,000. But if you're really desperate and you need it, and you don't have the collateral, they won't give it to you. But when you have the money, you can get it. When you don't have it, you can't get it, and that's when you need it. Same thing here. When you have a lot of money at your disposal, the brokerage houses, they'll look at you and they say, oh, well, you know, this person has a lot of money around here. We're going to let them do the less risky trades. But when you don't have a lot of money, they're going to put you into the risky trades. Don't you think it should be the other way around? But hey, let's play the game. We're not going to argue. we're going to get to the point where we can do this trade. So once you have enough money to own a stock, we're going to do the no risk trade. It's called a covered call. What does that mean? We're going to own Apple. We're actually going to buy it. Then we're going to sell options against it. Right now, if you don't know anything about options, you're saying, well, what does that mean? We're going to own the real thing and we're going to bet against it. That's what it means. But while we're doing that, if Apple starts to go up from its current price, right now it's trading at $446. So let's say 450. It goes from 450 to 455 to 460, 500. We're going to be gaining that appreciation, that paper profit that I talked about earlier. If they declare a dividend, I think they had a dividend, and they might be paying out another one. We're going to collect the dividend. When we bet against it, or we bet to cover it, we're sold an option. When we sell something, we collect money. So when we sell, we collect the premium. So now we're collecting actual cash with the dividend, we're collecting actual cash with the premium, and we're collecting the appreciation. If the stock goes down in value, so we're losing on paper, we're still collecting the actual cash and dividend, we're still collecting the actual cash and the premium, and we don't care. You're not losing anywhere. Paper loss means nothing. You can keep selling against this thing all the rest of your life, so long as you own it. When you own the stock, it doesn't expire. An option, the downfall of an option is that it expires. But when you sell, you collect money. When you know how to sell, you want it to expire, because time works in your favor when you're selling. You see how we can manipulate the theory, how we can manipulate something out of thin air and generate cash every day. Every day. It's a no-risk trade. And like I said, you have to have enough money to do this. What's enough money? It depends. For Apple, obviously, at $450 a share, if we're going to buy 1,000 shares, that's $450,000. So that's not going to work for us. Let's say we have 100 grand. We're going to need to look at a cheaper stock than that. If we have 450,000, well, we might want to do Baidu. Right now, Baidu is trading at $89. So if we did 1,000 shares, we're looking at $89,000. That's okay. We can sell options against Baidu. Baidu does move. It moved, I think, $5 the other day. Again, let me ask you, is it any wonder that the rich keep getting richer? Is it any wonder that they know what they're doing? They're not getting lucky. They're applying what's out there, and it's available to everybody. They're following the cardinal rule of money. They're always asking that question: how can I make this work for me? You can build up your bank. You can borrow from another bank, the real bank, and their world. Bring it into your own economy, into your own world, and you can make this trade. Can you imagine if your corporation is 3, 4, 5 years old and it has $1 million buying power, and you can go out and you can borrow $1 million at 10%. You can take that $1 million, you can come in here and buy several different stocks, and then turn around and sell several different options against those stocks. So now you're involved in, let's say, 5 different no-risk trades. Are you really going to be depressed about this situation? That you're making more money than what they're charging you at the real bank? There's a lot of application for how to make money. Wait till we get to real estate. There's also one there. There's no risk trade in real estate. A lot of people don't know it. A lot of people don't even understand, have never even heard the term. But you can borrow at 10% and you can generate up to 200% per year. Remember this slide that we talked about? Let's say instead of $10,000, you have $100,000, not 10. And now instead of making $100 a day, we're making $1,000 a day. Instead of making $22,000 a year, we're making $220,000 a year. We're still making the 220% return. This is what happens when you have license to print money, just like the Fed. Power to print money. We're creating an asset out of thin air. Just make sure you learn the proper application, not the theory. If you're learning the theory, somebody is telling you when you see $100, pick it up. But they're not telling you if you pick up that $100, you're going to be falling into a big old crater. It's going to cost you $1,000. Be careful. We can create an asset out of thin air. You don't have to own it. You will never own it. You don't ever want to own it. You just simply want to control it for a short period of time. You want to collect the money and go on your way. Now, we want to collect money every day, like I said, and we want to do it regardless of what's happening in the market outside. Regardless of what's happening in the market outside, we want to collect money. This is controlled. If we don't have that ability, we have not achieved control over our own economy. We've created an economy, but not one that we're controlling. We want to control it. The main focus of options is risk control. Be careful of that, which means that you want to have at least 70 to 80% chance of making money. And there are several strategies, like I said. We've gone over the no risk one, which is the covered call. And the one that I mentioned earlier, and I said we're going to go over it right now, is the spreads. I'm not going to explain spreads in detail. This is something that takes 2 classes to explain. That's 4 hours worth of teaching. But a spread is almost like this. It's making a bet, then buying insurance on the bet. Well, I'm going to bet on the right side. But, I'm going to bet on red, but I'm going to buy insurance just in case it's black. That's what a spread is, in simple terms. Specifically, credit spreads is what we like to do, especially since you don't want to sit in front of the computer all day long. This allows you to make a profit whether the market goes up, down, sideways, so long as it doesn't travel beyond outside this playground that we've told it is a parameter that we're giving it. Let me show you. Here's the trade. We are in a spread right here. So long, and right now the stock is trading at $70. You see where it says stock price? The stock is trading at $70. If the stock goes up with that right arrow, that's great. That's the safe zone. It can keep going as high as it wants. That's perfect for us. If it wants to just go sideways, perfect. We don't care. But if it comes down, so long as it does not drop below that 50, where it says short put, right there, and where that little red arrow comes down, 50, and it gets us into the danger zone. So long as it drops $20 or less, and it goes up to infinity, or it stays where it is, we're going to make money. Your chances of making money on something like this are about 90 to 95%. That's even better than the 70 or 80% I was telling you to look for. There's a rule and a formula to look for how low, in this scenario, how low the stock is likely to go and not get us in that danger zone. There's a rule and formula when you flip at it and you want it to go down, but you don't want it to go up beyond a certain point. There are rules and formulas. There are risk management strategies that you need to apply to do this. I have people that do nothing but these credit spreads all day long. That's it. This is a pretty safe trade. It's one of the safest you could do. Next to the covered calls, this is it. This is great. Let me show you the riskiest things you could do is this. You're going to buy it to go up or you're going to buy it to go down. If you have $2,000 in your account, this is all you can do. You're either betting it's going to go up or betting it's going to go down. So you're betting on red or betting on black. No insurance. Nothing's going to protect you. No safety net. You're walking a high wire with no safety net. Now, I like doing these trades because there are rules and procedures and techniques to doing these trades. Remember that Apple trade that I told you about? I got in at 8:54 and I got out at 9:10, 16 minutes later. That was one of these trades. In fact, Apple was dropping that day and it dropped and I made $1.10 profit. So it was the riskiest type of trade you could make. But with the riskiest type of trade, the only reason I got into it is because I had at least a 70% chance of success with it based off of the parameters that we look for in order to make that trade. There are rules and regulations. There are applications to your education that must be adhered to. So if I can give you any warning, it is that. Make sure that you have learned it to the point where you can talk about this like it's a foreign language. We don't buy a put, we do not buy a call. We're either long a put or long a call. We don't sell a call or sell a put. We're either short a call or short a put. Totally different language. You go to another country, you need to talk their language. You want to come into the realm of the rich, you need to talk the game in the language of the rich. You want to deal with options, you want to create something out of nothing, you need to talk the language in order to create something out of nothing. You need to talk a language that the construction people and the countrymen in that world can understand. That is when you start creating your own economy, when you know how to speak the language. Once you get the hang of options, you shouldn't be trading any more than 30 minutes to an hour and a half a day. Usually, again, Central Time, it's 8:30 to about 10. That's usually about the time. 10:30 max on certain days. A lot of days, the market's been over for me about 9:15, 9:30. Nothing left. That Apple trade again. Got in at 8:54, market opened at 8:30. Got in at 8:54, got out at 9:10. That's it. I think I got in like at 9:23, 9:24, something like that. I was in for 3 minutes and made another 45 cents per share or $450. Now some strategies, especially when it comes to spreads, they can go over a few days, which is fine. You're looking at collecting $1,200, $1,300, $1,500, $2,500, $3,000, $3,500 for those 2 or 3 or 4 days because we're in that credit spread, that particular strategy. That's fine. But again, it depends on you. Depends on what you're trying to do, what you like to do, how things are panning out, what your plan calls for. That's what we're looking for. I have some people complain, oh, I don't have to sit there and work it and do this. Well, I said, why don't you just think of it this way? When you're dealing with options, don't think of it, I'm having to sit there every day to work it. Think of it this way. Every day you're going to go to the bank, you're going to make a cash drop off, and then you're going to go about your business. That's it. You're going to go make a cash drop off, and you're going to go about your business. Most people can do this drinking their coffee in the morning and eating their cereal. Especially if you're retired or retiring. Especially if you're self-employed or have control over your schedule. I have a bet with my son. My 15-year-old, he's a sophomore. I told him if he learns this well enough by the time he graduates high school, I will open the account. I will put $25,000 in it. And what he has to do is start his classes after 2 hours, depending where he is, Central, Eastern, West time zone, Pacific time zone. Whatever the market starts in his time zone, he needs to schedule his classes at least 2 hours after that so that he can get up and he can trade for 30 minutes to an hour, hour and a half every morning. At the end of the month, we'll see how much profit he made. We'll take a percentage of that. That becomes his spending money. He doesn't have a problem with that. College kid's going to be looking for money. This is an easy way of making money. Roll out of bed, sit on a chair, click a couple buttons on the computer, go back to bed. Remember in your research that you're taking the material and you want to adapt it to your goals. Don't follow somebody else's goals. Don't do what Buffett is doing. Listen to what Buffett is saying and doing, but don't necessarily do what he's saying. Don't ever, 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 ever do what they tell you to do on TV. Don't ever, ever, ever follow the news. Remember, the definition of news is old information. It's already happened. If it's happening, or if they think they're discussing what might happen, that's called a rumor. The stock market usually runs on buy the rumor, sell the news. Even then, you got to be careful. You don't want to become a different person. You want to be your person, but you want to be refined in this world that you're creating, this economy that you're creating. So you want to take advantage of the opportunities that are being presented to you. This is the heart of what is needed to create your own economy. Options. This is the heart of generating cash every single day. Again, there's articles here to get you started if that's what you want to get started. If you want to learn it, you can go here and sign up, and then you can learn it. This is a very, very simple system. There are rules that must be followed, but please, please be careful of what you're reading, and don't jump in until you're ready. And by that, I mean know how to speak the language, know your risks, know your roadmap. I've given you a roadmap. Now you just need to fill in a lot of the smaller details in there, and nothing's going to do that better than experience. So we're going to move on to our castle. We're going to discuss real estate. We've already discussed all the others there that you see. So now we're going to move to another cash flow mechanism. But this cash flow mechanism is number 4 there. And that one, a lot of people will preach to you that's the best one to do. That is the greatest thing to do. Again, let's go over some information, not any advice or legalities, but over some information on how that fits into the create your own economy system. What we need to do is find a secure way of making money over a longer period of time. We want to be able to put in the work. We want it to be able to generate money, generate cash, and we want it to be almost automatic. With options, think of options this way. You're self-employed when you're dealing with options. But you're self-employed at a very, very, very high rate. And you don't have to be there all day long. With real estate, you're still self-employed, but you're self-employed with more luxuries, and that's what we're going to go over. Those luxuries are going to create a secure long-term cash generation for us, and they're not, like I said, they're not going to be like options where they're going to be immediate, or they're going to be like a cash drop-off like we were talking about in the way that you should look at it. But with real estate, it's going to be a longer term, but it is not the simplest and fastest way of doing it. So the question, instead of asking why real estate, I tend to ask why not real estate. Well, it is not real estate because of this very next line right there. You have to make on average 100 offers in order to get 5 accepted. And out of those 5, only 1 or 2 may close. That's a very, very, very low rate of cash flow reliance. Remember what we were saying earlier when we were talking about options, or the first level of our blueprint. We want something reliable and simple. This is not simple, and it is not reliable. For cash daily, we want cash daily deposits. We don't want cash yearly. We don't want possibly. We want to generate daily deposits. So on a daily basis, this is not going to cut it. So this one is necessary for our economy to thrive. And so we're going to go over those points. We're going to cover these points. They're going to be overlapping, so they're not going to necessarily be covered one at a time. Some of them are going to overlap. But let's start with the various types of real estate. A lot of people don't realize that there's a lot of things you can do with real estate. Residential, commercial, and commercial is broken up into 2 for our purposes: apartment buildings and office buildings. Then you have warehouse space like manufacturing, and then you have just empty land, and then you have construction, whether you're starting construction from scratch or whether you're buying out a construction project that's foreclosed upon, or is struggling, or you're jumping into buying property into new construction. For example, you have some place that's building 100 homes. What they'll start doing is they'll start pre-selling some of these homes, and these homes are going to be selling for $300,000-$400,000 when they're finished, but they'll start pre-selling them at $250,000. So by the time they're finished and it's worth $350,000, you've already made $100,000. That used to be very, very, very common. And the last one here is tax liens. This is the one that people say, huh? What is that? So my favorite of all of these that I like to deal with are tax liens and commercial property. But before we get anywhere, let's talk about, let's see, is this what we want to talk about? No, let's talk about, let's talk about the residential. That's the first one, but if you're dealing with residential, what you want to think about are a couple of different points. One, residential is good to get it and flip it. By flipping it means you don't want to hold it very long. In fact, you may not even want to own it. It's just barely below that option scenario that we're talking about in the options world. You want to get it under contract. I have the right to buy 123 Pine Street for $150,000. It's worth $300,000 or $200,000. I get it. I turn around. I say, hey, Andre, you want to buy it? You give me $5,000 and you can take this piece of paper and go buy it for $150,000. So it costs you $150 to buy it and $5,000 that you paid me, and you bought the house for $155 and it's worth $250 or $200 or $300. That's flipping the property. Another way of flipping it is to actually buy it, fix it up, and turn around and sell it. And that could take anywhere from 1 month to a year, depending on the market. So residential is good for that. When I started, like I said, I started with residential, and I bought them. I actually had them leased, rented out rather, instead of leased, rented out. But if you're going to hold on to a piece of property, what you want to do is lease it, not rent it. Why do you want to lease it? Because we own 123 Pine Street, and so the reason we want to lease it is because generally somebody who's leasing is going to take care of the property better. But let's go through what is a lease. A lease option is where I have the right to buy this property from you for $150,000. So you own it, you are willing to sell it for $150,000. So you and I come to this agreement. I will give you $5,000 down. That's non-refundable. If I decide not to buy the property, you get to keep it. Just like with the options world, when you sell that option and you get that credit, if they don't decide to exercise that option, you get to keep that premium. That's how you make money in options. Like I said, real estate and options relate very well, but with options we can fabricate property, we can fabricate and license. We have the license to generate out of thin air assets to sell against and buy against. Here we don't. So I give you $5,000 down. That's non-refundable, and we agree on this price of $150,000. And I also agree to pay you lease $150 per month. And I have 12 months. I have a year from today to exercise this option, which means come knocking on your door, say, you know what, I'm going to buy this house for $150 like we agreed. That's a lease option agreement. So 12 months down the road, it comes and goes, and I do not buy. I do not exercise the option. I decide, you know what, I don't want to live here. So I leave. Or I keep renting from you, and I keep paying you rent, but it's past the 12 months. So my option has expired. You keep the $5,000, and like I said, I either stay on a monthly basis or I move out. But let's say that I do decide I'm going to exercise the option and I want to buy the property from you. This is what we agreed upon when we did this agreement. I'm going to give you $5,000 down. I'm going to pay you $850 a month, but $200 of that monthly payment is going to be applied towards my down payment when I decide I'm going to buy the house. So here it is, 10 months later, I made the decision I'm going to buy the house. And so I get 10 months worth of $200 credit, so it's $2,000, plus the $5,000 that I gave you as a down payment already. So that's $7,000 that I've already given you towards the $150,000. So when I go to the bank, I'm essentially needing to borrow $143,000 to complete this purchase. Okay, so far so good. I think we have everything covered here. Yeah, everything's covered. We decided to buy it. We got the credit. Now, one thing to keep in mind, all of these terms are negotiable. The best terms that I ever negotiated was I put down $5,000 on a property, and I agreed to make the mortgage payment. No. Yeah, I agreed to make the mortgage payment, but the mortgage payment that he was paying was something like $1,100 or $1,200. So I agreed to make that $1,200 mortgage payment, but he agreed to give me $400 of that as credit towards my down payment. He had, quite a bit of equity in the house, so he wasn't really losing out on his payments because he was simply lowering the price for me on the purchase. So he's giving me $400 credit from that. Generally speaking, $100, $200 is what you're going to get as far as a credit towards the rental. If the fair rental market is $500 and you agree to pay $700, you want to ask for about $250. So you want to go slightly into that rent, to get it as a collateral. I mean, as a credit towards your purchase. So again, why a lease option? Because when someone is looking to buy a house as their own, to live in it as their own, they're less likely to cause damage to the house. One of the biggest problems that you will have in real estate is damage to a property caused by the tenant. That's one of the biggest problems. So you need to have good insurance in place and good repair people to fix it for you when it does happen, and hope that it doesn't happen. Now, I like apartment buildings and office buildings, like I said earlier, because you can afford to have an empty space at that point. For example, right now I'm looking at 29 units and 22 units. I have two different buildings I'm looking at. So if I have the 29 unit building and I have 9 of them empty, it's not a big deal. In fact, the 29 units is only half rented right now, as is. At the price that I'm looking to buy it, it needs some work, but at the price that I'm looking to buy it, the 14 units that are rented are generating $500 roughly each, so roughly about $7,000. The price that I'm looking at buying it, my payments are about $2,500 a month. With 14 or 15 of those units empty, I'm still making a positive cash flow. $2,500 is principal and interest for me on that deal. That's not a bad return at all. With a house, if you have a house empty, guess where that money has to come from for that mortgage payment for that month? Your pocket. With an apartment building or an office building, it comes from the other units. So we can't afford to have any empty spaces when you own just a house. So when you buy an apartment or office building, the other advantage of that is this. When you buy a house for $300,000, the lender is looking at you, your credit, your income, and your debt to income ratio, and can you afford to have this house? Because guess what they're looking at and they're thinking? If this house is empty, you have to make up the payment out of your pocket. Do you have enough money in your pocket to hold you over for at least 3 to 6 months? When it comes to an apartment building, they're saying, okay, you have 29 units, you're already making $7,000 coming in from the 14, your payments are going to be $2,500. If you have to come out of pocket, or if you have empty units and you have to pay because those units are empty, where is that money coming from? Well, it's still coming from the rents. So you're still okay. They're not going to look at you. They're going to look at the apartment building as a standalone, self-sustaining business. Can that building, can that property sustain itself? Do I need to look to Lewis to make the payment in case there's an empty spot? No. Do I really care? No. They're going to look for the business if it stands alone. Even if you have a good corporate credit building power, and like we've talked about before, the lender is still going to look at the building as a business. It's just that the fact that you have great borrowing power through the corporation just simply enhances your ability to borrow more money. The 29 units that I told you I'm looking to buy, the price that they're being offered to me is $185,000. It has a broker's price opinion on it of $750. It needs $100,000 worth of work. Let's say it needs 150 even, not even 100. So if I buy it at 180 and then I'm going to put in 150 on top of that, so now I'm into this building 330. And as is, it's worth 750, whatever I said it was. So I'm still under 50% value, and the rest of it is equity for me. It's not a bad deal. And the the lender is not even looking at me as far as Lewis able to buy it based off of his personal credit or his income. They're looking at the business, at the building itself. If I want to buy my house has a price higher than that building, and I wouldn't even qualify to buy my house in today's market. Because loans are few and far in between for stuff like that. But I can qualify to buy the building because it's a self-standing, self-sustaining business. And so that's what you need to concentrate on. That's why I love apartment buildings and office buildings. There's a lot more advantages and a lot more power given to you to give you that control that we need. Okay? So we talked about this as far as being able to calculate the feasibility of giving you the loan. Can that building sustain itself? Okay? By the way, anything above 4 units is considered commercial. So if you have a 4-plex, that's still considered residential. If you have 5 units and above, that's considered commercial. I'm not dissuading you from buying residential. I'm just saying if you have a choice, this is what you need to do. It's easier to buy a $700,000 building than it is to buy a $200,000 home. Zero risk deals. Remember we talked about this. And this happens to be number 6 on that chart of the different types of properties. Like I said, I like number 2, which is the commercial properties, and number 6, which is the tax liens. The tax liens is what the zero risk deals entails. Let me explain what this is. You say tax liens, and like I said, most people say, what is that? They have no idea what a tax lien is. If you want to know what a tax lien is, stop paying your property tax. The county will explain it to you. It's a lien that they place on your property when you're not able to pay the lien. Now they'll usually give you a month or 2 here and there, and then they'll send you, yeah, you're late, and then they'll charge you an extra fee, and then hey, you're late another month, they'll charge you an extra fee, and they'll drag it on for a little bit, but not too long. Because this is how they make the money. This is how the county survives. So when you don't pay, they don't like that very much. So this is how it works. Okay, first, you owe the money and you don't pay. The county places a lien on your property and you still don't pay. So they decide, you know what? We need more money. We can't go on like this. So they go to the courthouse steps. They have every month, or depending on the county. By the way, this changes from county to county, state to state. But let's say they go to the county courthouse and they offer all the liens that they have on the properties in that county for sale. Here's the thing. Most tax liens do not sell at the steps, which is good because I don't like buying them at the court steps. Most people that buy at the county court steps, 1, don't know what they're doing, and 2, they tend to drive up the prices for the ones that do know what they're doing. So those people that usually know what they're doing with tax liens don't buy them at the county court steps. What they do is they will go and they'll buy them directly from the registrar or over the counter after they've been placed for sale. You can't buy them over the counter in most places until after they've been put up for sale and they haven't sold. Now the county just needs to get rid of them so they can make their money. So let's jump to the sale and say you already bought it. Okay, so you bought the lien and you own it. In Texas, if you buy a lien, and let's say I owe $1,000, no, $10,000 on my property, and I haven't paid my taxes, and you bought my lien from the county, not only do I have to pay you $10,000 if I want to keep my property, but I have to pay you $10,000 plus 25% interest. That's $2,500. That's per year. Now the maximum that can go to is 50% because that's as long as the redemption period. By the way, the redemption period is how long do you have to pay that lien back and not lose your property. And in Texas, again, it's going to vary from state to state, county to county, but in Texas, if you have a homestead, you have 2 years to redeem that. So the maximum that you're going to be owed is 50%. Can you imagine paying $10,000 to own a tax lien? And even if I pay it the very next day, I have to pay you 25%. But if I pay it on the 366th day after you bought it, I have to pay you 50%. All of a sudden, you either made $2,500 or $5,000 return on that $10,000 investment. Not a bad deal. So at the end of the period, when the time has run out, it's not tight, the time has run out, and the lien has not been repaid, you, the person who bought the tax lien, you get the property in Texas. In some place like Florida, for example, you don't automatically get the property. In Florida, the interest rate is 18%. But the time for redemption has run out. In Florida, you have to go tell the county courthouse, and the county or the registrar of the county puts it up for sale. Not the lien. They actually put up the house now for sale. Then people come in and they bid on it. Let's say the house is worth $500,000 and it sells at auction for $300,000. And you're not the one that bought it. All you have is a $10,000 lien on the house. Whoever bought it has to pay not only the $300,000 to the county for selling the house, but they have to pay you your $10,000 plus they have to pay you the 18%. So you're going to get paid either from the original owner or the new owner in Florida. In Texas, you're going to get paid either from the original owner or you're going to actually get to own the property. In Texas, you just walk in and say, hey, the 2 years has expired. I filled out the paperwork, and it'll cost you around $1,000 or so. And you walk in, give it to them, they'll stamp it. You own the house now. Very simple in Texas. Now here's the thing about getting a property just about anywhere, not just here. I think this is across the country, but again, you have to review it and look at it for each county in every state, and they do change every now and then. This is the greatest thing about this. When you get the property, you get it free and clear of any other liens. What does that mean? Again, we have a $500,000 loan on this property, and you paid the $10,000 for the tax lien, and it wasn't redeemed. When you walk into the county registrar's office and you filled out the paperwork in Texas, you get this house free of that $500,000 loan. Let's say the house is worth $550,000, and there's a $500,000 loan on it. Now you just walked out of that office owning a $550,000 property with zero debt. Now don't get too excited about this because 95% of these tax liens are redeemed. You do not get the property. However, you always get paid your 25 or 18%. At minimum, you get your interest rate plus your principal. Now this is how this works. The reason it's a zero risk trade is because it's backed by the power of the state legislature, and most of the time the lien is paid by the property owner or the bank. Let's go back to that example with the $500,000 loan on the property. It's worth $550,000. Let's say it's even worth $1 million. It doesn't matter what it is. But the fact that the bank has a loan on that property And when there's a lien for property tax, the bank finds out about these things because they run a continual search on all their loans that they're holding. And when they find out there's a $10,000 lien here and it is close to expiring, if we don't redeem it, we're going to lose this property. They will come in and they will pay you your $10,000. They will pay you the interest on top of that, and they will take back the house. If they can't restructure the loan with the owner that is in default on his property tax, they will turn around and they will foreclose on the property and sell it themselves. That's better than losing a $500,000 loan or a $100,000 loan. Now, when this scenario happens, when this comes down, and like I said, it's all backed by the legislature and someone is going to pay you. But in 2007, 2009, nobody paid you. The banks were so inundated with these liens that were taking place across the country, they couldn't keep up. They did not have the manpower to check on the statuses of all these things. So a lot of people were walking away with $200, $300, $500, $1 million property free and clear after paying $10, $15, $20, $30, $40,000 in back taxes. I will spend $50,000 or $100,000 in a heartbeat if I'm going to walk away with $1 million property. This was a big contributor to the losses that the banks suffered. They did not have the manpower to go and redeem all these liens because they didn't have the manpower to search and find out about all these liens. Now you can still get property. About 5% of the time you will end up with the property. Just be careful what kind of property you're ending up in, or with rather. Now a lot of times you'll end up with an empty piece of land somewhere. And you know what? It sounds good, like, oh, I can always sell it and make some money, but you got to be careful. Sometimes on these empty pieces of property, they're just sitting out in the middle of nowhere and they're collecting $500 or $1,000 lien default year over year. The county isn't going to make as big of a deal about them. Somebody may not be willing to buy it because, you know, what are they going to do with it? And so they're not going to spend $1,000 or $2,000 or $10,000 that this person is behind, and he's behind 6, 7, 8 years. And so you buy it, and of course they're not going to redeem it. They haven't redeemed it for all that time. So you end up with this piece of property out of the middle of nowhere. Sometimes you might pay $10,000 for a piece of property. It's only worth $2,500. So don't look at it, oh man, I got a good chance of getting this property, because it's not going to get redeemed, as a good thing unless you plan on doing something with that property yourself, again, to make you money. Ask the question, how can I make this work for me? Is the cardinal rule going to apply? Generally speaking, I would rather make the 25% or the 18% return than get the property in that type of scenario. Now, if I'm going to walk away, like I said, with a house, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, and I'm going to spend, you know, a fraction of that to get it, well, yeah, of course. I mean, that's not a no-brainer. But be careful. Don't go be one of those people that goes to a car auction because you're buying a car at the car auction. You think you're getting a great deal, and you pay $10,000 for a car that's only worth $4,000. I've seen that happen. I've been to car auctions, and I'm thinking, what are these people bidding on? Are they looking at a different car than me? I got the blue book in front of me, and I'm opening it up, and it's only worth $4,000, and the bidding is up $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, $9,000, $10,000. Now, what's going on? These people get carried away. It's at an auction. It's like saying, oh, it's on sale. Well, know what you're doing. Know what you're buying. This is one of my favorite things about real estate, is the fact that it gives you that collateral that we talked about before. Remember when I said when you need a loan and you don't have any collateral, anything to support it with, you're not going to get the loan? Real estate automatically gives you a pretty good asset base to start building that buying and borrowing power. And on top of that, it's enhancing the balance sheet. That's how you're building the credit side of things. So this is part of that overlap that we were talking about. So when building credit for your corporation, it is very, very helpful when you have a hard asset like real estate. With options, Like I said before, we're not buying something. We don't care about buying something. All we want to do is control it. And in fact, most of the time we're making it up out of thin air. Here we're actually buying a tangible asset that we can borrow against, we can leverage to get that money, to take it and do what? Put it back in options so that we can generate more property out of nothing. So it is that, merry-go-round where you're just going to go round and round and round. You're just going to take money and going to put it into the options and bring it back to the real estate world, bring the options back to the real estate world, and it's going to generate a lot of borrowing and banking power through your corporation and your bank. So it pads your balance sheet and it generates stability for that balance sheet in order to improve the borrowing power. Now imagine how great that collateral is if we're dealing with a commercial property instead of a residential property. Because not only is the value of the building helpful, but also the income, right? I'm looking at buying these 29 units worth $750,000. I'm buying it for 180. I'm going to put in 150, roughly speaking. So we're looking at 330,000 to put into this building. So now, not only do I have a property that's worth, after fix up, it's probably going to be worth more than 750, but let's say 800, 850, 900,000. Not only is it worth that, but if I fix it up and I rent out the other 15 units, and let's say I rent it out at the same price as the others, we keep it at 500. Not only am I making $7,000, but I'm making $14,000 a month in value right now. What do I have? The equity that I have in the property, again, assuming I don't borrow and take that equity out, I keep it there. That equity in that property is similar to, let's go back to the stock market, it's similar to that paper profit, right? I can't pay the bills with it, can't do anything with it, but unlike the paper profit in the stock market, I can borrow against it. But let's just say we're going to just keep it there. It's equity, it's paper profit, and we're not going to do anything with it. But I'm generating $14,000 per month in profit from this building. I'm going to be paying $2,500 on that original loan. Let's say I borrowed another $150 to fix it up, and let's say my payments now are $5,000. I'm still netting $9,000. Let's say I need another $2,000 for landscaping and maintenance and upkeep and all that. So now we're up to $7,000. So I'm still netting $7,000 per month on this property. I'm grossing 168 and I'm netting 7,000. So therefore I am netting $84,000. What is that bank going to look for? They're going to look at this property and say, okay, we have a property worth $900,000, and on top of that, it has an $84,000 net profit. You see how commercial property just multiplies that exponential growth, that compounding growth that we talked about with the options world? Remember, making $100 a day, leave it in there for a year, and it's going to multiply? Now, it's going to take time with real estate to get to that point where we're growing like the scenario that we're talking about. But once it starts working, it's amazing how fast it grows. And what do we want to do with that money? We want to take that money, buy more property as we find it, but while we're waiting to buy the property, the real asset, real estate property, we're going to dump it in our options account, and we're going to make it make 5, 10, 15, 20% return per month. So instead of putting it in Bank of America and earning 0.001% interest, which is, in my opinion, a slap in the face, they're taking my money, they're borrowing against it, loaning it back to me, and they're giving me 0.001% as a return on my deposit. So we're going to take that money, we're going to put it in our own account, in our own bank, which is not Bank of America, not the bank account for the corporation, but the trading account for the corporation, the options account, and we're going to generate 10% per month, not per year, per month, at least, return on that money. So can you imagine if I took $84,000 over a course of a year? Well, let's use the $7,000. We have $7,000 profit per month. And let's say we're able to dump that into the options trading account every month, and we generate only 10% return per month. That's $700. $700 per month. Again, we're going to keep it straight mathematics. We're not even compounding it, because next month I got 14 and then I got 21. But even at just $700, I'm making an extra $8,400 a year. What bank out there is paying you $8,400 in interest on your deposit? Nothing. Not one. Not one. Now take that $700 and make it $1,400 for the second month. Make it $2,100 for the third month. Make it $2,800 for the fourth month. That's just pure mathematics. That's not even compounding, because it grows at a faster rate than that. This is how you create your own economy system works. It must mesh together. The corporations must protect it. The corporation must give you tax savings. The corporation must allow that bank borrowing power to grow. The options world must generate and grow that initial seed money, that tree that we planted off of a 25 cents expense must now start paying off, start giving us fruit. We're going to take that fruit, we're going to dump it into real estate, preferably commercial property. We're going to take that commercial property and we're going to leverage it for its equity. We're going to leverage it for its net income. Then we're going to take that money, we're going to take it back to the churning center, where we're making more money through the trading account. And then as we get property that comes in, we're going to take it out. I get this property and I have $330,000 into it, and it's worth $900,000. The first thing I'm doing, I'm finding out who will loan me 80% of that $900,000. I will go out and I will take a loan of $720,000 on that. You know why? Because I'll take the $330,000 and I'll pay it back out of the $720,000, and what I will have left is $390,000 in cash that I'm putting in my trading account. If I take $390,000 and I make my 10% return per month on that, I'm making $39,000 per month. If I make $39,000 per month times 12 months, that's $468,000. In 2 years, I will have made more money than I borrowed against that property. Pure mathematical growth, not even compounding or exponential growth. That's creating your own economy. That's making your money work for you. That's the cardinal rule of money. The money is always working. Is it working for you? Let's look at another thing that I like about real estate, is where you're able to carry back a note. This is very helpful when you get into that construction kind of deal that I told you about. You know, somebody's building 200 homes and they go bankrupt, so you can buy the entire construction site, and then you can get it finished, because you're buying it at a discount, you're buying it at a foreclosure, you get it finished out, you bring in a contractor, and generally speaking, for example, here's a specific example. I had a client, and this is the deal that happened. The construction had 50 houses that were being built, and it went under. So he bought it roughly at 45 cents on the dollar. And so he bought the property, finished the construction for it, and started selling the properties. Out of the 50 homes, I believe 17 of them or something like that were sold outright. He didn't have to carry back anything. So he made his money back, and he paid off what he owed on buying it. The rest of the property that were left, were all at some degree, not completely, had seller carryback. 33 properties, he had a note on at least one of those, in some way, shape, or form on those 33 properties. So whether you're in first place or second place, if somebody misses a payment to you, you can foreclose. Out of those 33 properties, most people refinanced in 2 years and paid him off. If he was willing to sell a property for $150,000, he worked it out to sell it for $175,000, plus he carried part of that note, if not the entire note, at 8% instead of the going rate at 5%, or 5.25%, I think it was. So he made money on selling it higher. He made money on getting a slightly higher interest rate, but still within the legal rate. And he got paid in 2 years. On 4 of those properties, he took them back. So they had given him these deals. Most of them worked out to where he had $15,000 to $20,000 down payment, and then they had monthly payments. On 4 of these properties, he took the property back. He kept the $20,000. He kept the payments that had been made to him. And remember, all of this is pure profit for him because he already paid back the loan off the first 17 homes. He took those 4 homes and he rented out 3 of them and ended up selling 1. Carrying back notes is very, very powerful. It can give you a lot of leverage. It can allow you to sell a home much quicker and help out some people that truly need help. For whatever reason, they have bad credit, ailments, a variety of things could cause them to be in that position. So it gives you another chance to help people as well. So because they can't qualify with the bank, you can carry back, and if they fail, you simply foreclose and take the property back. Again, this is the deal that I just told you about the 50 homes. And you can buy for pennies on the dollar. All legal. One thing you want to do with real estate, make sure you have a variety of contracts on hand. And by that, I don't mean, different types of the same kind, but if you're a seller, make sure you have a contract that is supporting you and giving you protection as a seller. If you're a buyer, a contract written from your perspective as a buyer. If you're going to be carrying back, your perspective as a lender. If you're the one that's going to be asking somebody else to carry back, because that's another way of buying, from you being the borrower. So you want to have a variety of these contracts. So in a heartbeat, you can just simply change the name on the contract and run it off and then be ready to go with the deal. Again, these are going to be run through your corporation, sometimes corporations. By the way, on that deal that was 50 properties, the entire construction thing was bought by an LLC, and then by a C corporation, and each property underneath that had a separate LLC. Now, I didn't think he needed to go that far, but what he was afraid of is that there was going to be a lot of equity, and he wanted to protect each piece of property. Because I recommended, you know what, let's just divide it into 3 or 4 pieces, and then set up 3 or 4 companies or LLCs, and you can put them underneath there and just sell them off one at a time. And then if the ones you're going to keep, as far as rentals, you can set those under separate LLC. But he wanted to do it that way, and so he ended up with a bunch of LLCs. But he ended up selling several of the homes with the LLC attached, because some of the people that bought the homes were investors. So they were happy to get the house and the corporation that's already in place, giving them the asset protection that they needed from their renters once they got them in place. So essentially with real estate, what we want to do is have constant cash flow. And like I've been explaining here, the best way to do it is through that commercial property setup. Tax liens are a great place to park your money. So if you don't want to be involved in renters, or you don't want to be involved in flipping property, you don't want to be involved in too much activity, you just simply want to almost be like an investor, and you don't mind waiting for your money, and you're going to make a pretty decent return, at least 10, 18, 25%, depending on what state you're in. Tax liens is the way to go. It's a zero risk proposition, essentially. So that's the nuts and bolts of real estate, no pun intended, that you need to create your own economy. What we have going with the setup here is the hard asset, again, no pun intended, but the hard asset, the actual tangible thing that you can touch, unlike options. As you noticed, there's a lot of common things that come into play. You can option here, you can in real estate, you can option in the stock market. But in the stock market, you're essentially making up the entity or the asset, because you're betting against an existing asset that you don't own, will never own. Here, you're usually going to end up owning it, or you have an option and you have some money sunk into that right in order to be able to own it. Pretty much that's all that we have for the real estate without killing it and trying to go into specific details. And again, real estate, the fun thing about it is that it changes, which is eliminates the boredom of investing or of anything really. But it's a great system for setting up that continual cash flow and that asset for the borrowing power, which greatly enhances your balance sheet for the corporation. So now let's move on to the final part of the Create Your Own Economy system. And this is what we're looking at. Again, this is our castle. This is our economy that we're creating here. We're going to look at the column on the far left, which is the business. That's the business ownership. On our blueprint, it is number 5, right on top, right below where me sits. And again, there's legalities and those kind of ramifications here. So let's look at it from the perspective of what is the information, perspective of how should we start researching to see what are the legal issues, the taxation issues, the financial issues that we need to look at. And when you find somebody that's going to help you, because you're going to need an accountant, you're going to need an attorney to have, like I said, in place, and hopefully you never need the attorney. But you want to find somebody who knows what they're talking about. Again, if I have any information that you may need, or that I haven't covered any information and I don't cover it, please feel free to email me at that. But let's look at the leveraging yourself and leveraging your time. One thing that we saw, we leveraged our time and our money with the options world. We leveraged our time and our money with real estate. Here we're going to leverage our time and we're going to leverage ourselves with the corporation. Because instead of being self-employed, we're going to be business owners. And so, yes, we're still leveraging money, but we're paying out money to have other people do the work for us here. So I prefer to look at it as I'm not leveraging time and money, I'm leveraging time and myself. I'm duplicating myself. I'm getting people that understand what I want done, how I want it done, when I want it done, and I want it done now to generate money, whether I'm here or not. So I want you to be in my place making me money while I'm out having fun. That's essentially the idea with a business. So while you're out doing your options and your your daily deposits at the bank, and you're out doing your real estate or anything else, we're going to take other people's efforts, have it make us continual automated cash flow, and we're still going to generate bank deposits out of the business. Otherwise, we're not running efficiently, obviously. And as a result, it's going to greatly enhance our balance sheet. It's going to have its own balance sheet as well. Every corporation will have its own balance sheet. But this business has to be standalone. A lot of people get overwhelmed with the discussion of corporations. Do not allow it to overwhelm you. Okay? Owning a corporation is the most simple thing and natural thing that will happen. And before you know it, you say, well, how did I get here? Let's give you a easy example with what we've talked about with creating your own economy. You have your options, it's making you money. You have your real estate, now we're buying 2, 3, 4 apartment buildings, we're on the move, we're doing well, we've put in our time, we've put in our money, our efforts, now it's starting to pay off. All of a sudden, you're not going to be able to manage. You can manage one apartment building, but now you're not going to be able to manage 4 or 5 of them, especially if they're in 3 or 4 or 5 different cities. So what we need to do is we need to establish and we need to hire somebody to support that management. So just out of the business, the real estate business itself, another business is going to be born. and which is going to reduce our expenses and generate cash flow. That's the idea. We're going to set up a business, but we cannot set up a business without asking the question. What is that question? How am I going to make this make me money? Once you have access to money, you'll be surprised how many businesses you're going to want to open up, especially once you realize how to open them up and how to make them work for you. Okay? Here's what we're going to do. We're going to open a property management company. So we have our options. We have our real estate. Now we need somebody to manage this property. While I'm out looking for more property and I'm doing my hour to hour and a half trading in the morning, generating my daily bank deposits, I need somebody to be looking after these properties. But you know what? I'm earning $7,000 in net income. I don't want to have to pay them 10% of the $14,000 that's coming in every month, right? That's roundabout, because it'll vary anywhere from 7 to 15% as far as the charge and the commission that you're going to pay a property management company. So instead of paying $1,400 a month to these people and therefore reducing my $7,000 income by $1,400, and now all of a sudden I'm only able to put $5,600 into my options account, my bank, in order to keep generating money, we need to ask ourselves the question that we should always be asking with the cardinal rule of money, which is, how can I make this work for me? What we're asking here is, how am I going to make this new business make money for me? I don't want to set up a business that's going to cost me money. I want to set up a business that's going to make me money. Yes, it's going to manage my property, and that means it's an expense. But you know what? That's not how I do business. That's not how my economy works. Here's how we're going to do it. We're going to hire somebody to manage it, but we don't want to necessarily have to pay for it. Now, we're going to make a payment, but that's for a totally different reason than as an expense. So we set up a management company, and we have that management company manage other people's property. Let me explain. I own 5 apartment buildings under our scenario. There are 5 different cities. I hire a management company, and then while that manager is out there taking care of my property, he's also looking at other properties that need to be managed. So he goes to Tina, and he goes to Richard, and he goes to Debbie, and he goes to Andre, and he goes to Brad, he goes to Eric, he goes to all these people that are out there that have property, and he says, hey, you want someone to manage your property? The going rate is 10 to 12% in this area. I'll only charge you 7%. So out of the 10 people that say he asks, or 50 people or 100 people, let's say he only gets 10% takers. So if you get just 10% takers, that's some money coming in. But if you can undercut the market and if you can do a good job, you're going to get a better return than that. So out of 10 people you ask, let's say you get 50% takers, which is very reasonable. Now you have 7% income being generated from 5 different people. I'm agreeing to pay this property manager who's running my business, who I put in my place, who is duplicating me. Not only is he managing my property, but he's managing 5 other properties for somebody else, and they're paying my company a return of 7% for every rental. Let's assume they have the exact same thing that I have. They're generating $14,000 a month. And so out of the $14,000 a month, they're going to be paying 7% as a commission for the management instead of the 10-12% that's normally out there. And we have 5 of them. That's $980 per person, or per property, times 5. That's $4,900 that's coming in for managing these other properties. Just for managing my property alone, I had agreed to pay this guy $1,400 to run it under my own company. So I tell, let's call him John. John is my property manager. I say, you know what, John? I know we agreed that I was going to pay you $1,400, but since we're picking up business and you're having to hire some people and we're this, I'm going to pay you, instead of $1,400, I'm going to give you $2,200, and we're going to hire a couple other people and we're going to give them, $500 or $1,000. and then we want to start picking up some more business. So all of a sudden you're bringing in $5,000, you're paying out $3,500 of that, maybe even $4,000 of that to John and the employees you're hiring. You still haven't even paid your $1,400 into the pot. You have $1,000 of profit that's being generated from the property management business. So now you're up $2,400 in the whole scheme of things. Now we are going to pay the $1,400 because we want to keep the transaction at arm's length. Company A is going to pay Company B. And see, you really don't care whether your money's in your left pocket or your right pocket. It's your money and you can access it any time. So we're going to take it out of the building fund. We're going to pay it into the management fund. And then from the management fund, we're probably going to have another company that is our true bank that is charging the management company for advice and for various other things. So we're going to shuffle that $2,400 out of there legally as an expense to another company, which rolls it back around and ends up in our bank and is being traded. So we took a company that was going to cost us money and we asked one question: how can I make this work for me? And it generated cash for us. How about growing your business now? Because you're managing, you have 5 apartment buildings. Now we've picked up 5 other apartment buildings for other people, and you're still buying property. Now you're up to 7, 8, 10 buildings, and we're picking up more clients left and right. You say, you know what? That's a lot of landscaping we got to take care of and keep these places pretty, because when they're pretty, we get more people attracted to come in and rent. And when we get good people to come and rent, they will keep it nice and clean, and we have less damage. So it's a domino effect. So now you come to John and say, you know what, John, we're going to need to set up a landscaping business here. Do you know any landscapers? Or if you've already been using somebody for your property. Or if you know of a small landscaping business out there, go buy them out. One, they already have existing clients. Right off the bat, you're buying cash flow. See, the mistake that people do with businesses, they go and they buy assets. Why are you buying an asset? Go buy a cash flow. We don't need assets, we need cash flow. If there's cash flow, there's assets. If there's assets, it doesn't mean that there's necessarily a cash flow. So we're going to go buy a business that already has clientele. And then on top of that, we're going to say, hey, by the way, we're going to pay you. I know you're making about $1,500 a week. We're going to pay you $2,500 a week, but we're going to need you to take care of these other properties. Those 5, 7, 10 properties are yours. Then you have the 5, 10, 15 properties. They're somebody else's. And by the way, you need to hire some more people. Let's hire some more people. Now we're generating another $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 at least from the landscaping business. Now we have 2 businesses. And you're not even managing either one. All you're doing is just simply making sure that the books are balancing. One of my favorite things about owning a business, especially when you get the bug for how great it is how to grow it. Most people don't know how to grow a business. Most people will start a business and know, oh, once it gets to this level, then we're going to open up another store, or we're going to go after more assets, or we're going to go after more clients. Why? Why are we doing something on such a slow pace? If you're moving right along, there's competitors left and right. And some of them are smaller than you. Some of them are bigger than you. Some of them are the same size. And guess what? At any one of those levels, there's somebody who's willing to sell for the right price. Go buy them out. So long as they have cash flow. We're not looking to duplicate the number of people working. We're looking to multiply the cash flow coming in. So you have 10 employees, they have 10 employees. But with their cash flow, now instead of making $5,000 a month, we could be making $15,000 a month, but we don't necessarily need 20 employees. You keep on those 20 people with condition. We have to generate X amount of new business within a certain amount of time, or we're going to have to let somebody go. I'm not a fan of letting people go right out of the chute of buying a business. Give them a chance. If you're willing to work with them and you give them a chance to go out and work for you and with you, they will actually do it. And they'll do a great job. They want to save their job. Buy out a smaller business. Multiply. Don't add yourself. Don't go 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1. Go 1 times 5 times 20 times 30. Grow exponentially. Isn't that what we learned how to do with options? Isn't that what we learned to do with real estate? Why are you changing it for business? Oh, you need more money? We've been working the banking power and the borrowing power for the corporations through the options and through the real estate, and by collecting this assets that allowed us to set up the landscaping business and the property management business. So we have some pretty good buying and borrowing power at our disposal. You take that money and you run with it. You grow. Take the money and see, how is it going to make me money? So can you see that this is very easy to set up? Look at this new one. Can you see how very easily, from you being successful with real estate, that you can get an inside track on more property before anybody else can? You already have a landscaping business. You already have a property management business. Why don't you set up a property cleaning business? You know, when banks get a property and they foreclose on it, they need somebody to go in and clean that thing out. Why don't you set up a business, start going around to all these different banks, because now you know several of them, because you've been dealing with several of them. They know you. You have business and property all over the place. Start picking up some of that business. As soon as they get a piece of foreclosure, guess what they do? They call you. Hey, John, Lewis, Adam, Richard, I have this property. We just foreclosed on it. It's at 123 Pine Street. I need you to go and clean it out. Okay. Hey, by the way, how much do you want for that property? Oh, I think they're asking for this, and it's worth about this. You go and you're cleaning it out, you're checking it out, you like it, you come back and say, hey, you know what? I can save you guys a lot of money. Since you guys want to sell that thing that we just cleaned out at Pine Street, I can buy it from you. Instead of you listing it, instead of you having to pay the upkeep and this and that, I'll buy it from you for this price. Make them a deal. You're already working with them. They're already working with you. They already trust you. They want to get it off their books, because when they have a bad loan on their books, they can't borrow from the Fed. Every time they have a bad loan, they have to put more money in reserve. When they have to put more money in reserve, they can borrow less from the Fed. If they borrow less from the Fed, they can't loan out as much. If they can't loan out as much, they can't make money. And how do they make money? Based off of loans. If you can get that bad debt off the books, now they can put less in reserve. They can take that money, they can borrow more from the Fed. If they can borrow more from the Fed, they can come back and they can loan and they can make more money. Now you have the inside track on buying foreclosures in your city. Now all of a sudden you have 3 businesses. How about this one? You're managing all kinds of units all over the place. Do you think some places may want to furnish their units? Or some people that are moving in don't have furniture? Maybe you can set up a used furniture store, or just plain furniture store where you sell new or used. A lot of people that want to sell their property, guess what they like to do? Is stage their home. They can come and buy it from you or lease the furniture from you to stage the property. And when they sell the house, if the buyer wants it, they can buy it at that point. So essentially it's like an option. Now you can be selling furniture to your tenants, to your people that you're managing, their tenants, or to just plain old other real estate investors who are looking to stage their properties for sale. All of a sudden we have a handful of businesses. We haven't even started looking for businesses. This is something that's just springing out of being successful in your own economy with what you're doing every day anyway. To set up a good business and a successful business, to build your credit, though, we need to follow some regular issues that the bank are going to ask for. Not only do you need to have your corporate papers in place, the articles of incorporation, you need to have your resolutions. And by the way, resolution is nothing more saying, I as a secretary of this corporation am authorizing the president, John Doe, to go and open a bank account at Bank of America and to be able to ask for credit. That's it. It's just a declaration is all it is. But they would like you to set up a business office. Hey, since you own so many properties, especially if you own an office building, reserve a little space for yourself. Now you can have the office at home, but it's actually a little better if you have it at a commercial property. You need a dedicated phone for your business. A lot of people like to do it with a cell phone. That's okay, but they would like to have a dedicated phone line. It's better to have a hard line, whether it be through Vonage or whoever else, that you can actually get it somehow listed. There's some companies that will actually list your phone number, just like in the old days where you could call up information and get the listing for so-and-so. And nowadays it's imperative that you have a website and obviously an internet connection. Everything you do is practically through the internet. Don't use a Gmail or a Yahoo or any of these other generic email addresses. If you're going to run your business as a business and you want to present that sophisticated side, act sophisticated with your email. johndoe@xyz.com or johndoe@webuyproperty.com, johndoe@wemanageyourproperty.com. At least it's a free advertisement every time you give out your email. That's the least of it. A business plan. With options, you need to have a plan of what are your parameters. Remember we talked about different parameters of when you get in and when you get out of the trades. With real estate, we talked about, we crunched the numbers. These are the parameters. We need to make so much money. We need to do this. We need to do that. What if we have empty space, so we don't necessarily want to hold on to residential? So we have a plan of attack. With a business, you need to have a business plan. You're estimating this much money to come in. You're estimating expenses to be this. You're estimating growth at this rate. A bank is going to ask for that to set up your credit anyway. They want to see that you have thought this through and didn't just simply throw some pieces of paper together. You want to review this as often as possible. Monthly would be great, but at least every quarter, and make some changes to it. If you're ahead of schedule, update it. If you're behind schedule, find out why. Get caught up. You want to have a very good accountant. Like we talked about, I've mentioned this several times in every single piece of the make it and the keep it side of things, even the pure planning side of things. You want to have a good accountant, not just a tax preparer, but a tax strategist. The first one is going to cost you money. The second one is going to save you money. Because the second one, the tax strategist, is going to ask, how can this make me money? How can I reduce my taxes? Or, in this case, how is he going to reduce your taxes? He's going to give you the strategy to do that. How can I turn this into a savings somehow? How can I use it as an expense? How can I reduce, not avoid taxes? That's a very, very, very big piece of the pie. He's going to come in handy when you decide to buy out the competitors. We talked about that, right? Well, you're going to need to look at their books. How much money are they making? Does this sound right, or does this look like it's fabricated? Is this legit? If we buy them, and are we buying them 3 times their annual earnings, 5 times, 2 times, 10 times? What makes sense? He can crunch those numbers and figure that out. Well, if you do it this way, this way, this way, we might be able to save money here. We can make them this kind of offer. Instead of doing an all-cash offer, why don't we do it this way and make payments? If you can buy a business for $500,000 and you can give them $150 down, and then over the next 3 or 4 years make them payments, now you're using their assets, their cash flow, their clientele that you just took over to generate income to give them back the money. That's like borrowing for free. If you set it up correctly, if you have the right person to help you out. Have a good lawyer. Again, you hope you never ever need them for going to court. But if you're buying out other people, you want a competent attorney in that area of expertise. One, your corporation type of deal, obviously, but preferably in your line of business. And it's not always going to be real estate. It's going to be other issues as well, manufacturing, restaurant, whatever it is you decide to go into. You'll spread out once you start making money. And you get the hang of running a business and getting the right people to run them for you. But you want to make sure that you have the appropriate language in the contracts, the non-competes, and this and that, and the valuables and invaluables. And what about the liabilities? What about the this and that? What about salvaging this corporation? We don't necessarily want to close down a corporation they have because it has history. Because it has history, it also has what? Credit power, buying power. All of a sudden, you're buying a corporation or a business that's 10 years old or 30 years old. Right now, I'm working with someone who is looking to buy a business that has been around for 55 years. They generate 50% of the business for that county. And he's looking to buy it at practically nothing. His question to me was, well, maybe we should start a new one. Why? Oh, well, you know, this one is so old. I said, that's great. This one has credit all over the place. They've been dealing with 3 different banks. They can borrow on that phone call. The owner is willing to stick around for 12 months after he sells it to you. During that time, we will have established ourselves with the bank to be able to continue the buying and the borrowing power when we show them that we're going to keep running the business in an efficient manner the way it's been running. But you got to have all of that lined up correctly. You got to have somebody that's going to crunch all that for you in the right order, in the right times, in the right contracts. All of that stuff is incredibly valuable and incredibly irreplaceable when you have the right team in place. Because guess what these attorneys and these accountants have access to as well? Other clients. A lot of your companies that you're going to end up buying, your accountant is going to come to you and say, you know what, I have a client who's looking to get out of business, and they have this business and it does very well. However, I think if you change this, this, and this, and this, you could double and triple the business. And this guy is willing to sell for, 60, 70, 80 cents on the dollar. Hey, let's buy it. You find property like that. You find businesses like that. You find a lot of opportunities like that. Your lawyer is going to come to you with the exact same stuff. Hey, there's a bankruptcy. Hey, there's a foreclosure. Hey, there's an estate sale. Hey, so-and-so, that's handling this thing needs to get out. You will pick up so much property, so much assets, so much speed on your economy when you surround yourself with the right people. Lawyers, accountants in the right arena, competent in the field that you need them to be competent in. I have accountants that are telling people that are own real estate, that are in the options world, oh, you don't need to incorporate. Don't incorporate. That's not the kind of accountant you need to be with. No, there's nothing wrong with that accountant, but that accountant is a tax preparer. They don't understand the ramifications of different business acumen that's taking place. So this is what we need to do with our business. We need to run it in a manner that's going to generate money for us. Don't set up a business in order to help you out, but it's going to cost you money. Ask the question, how can we make this work for us? From day one, from the first dollar that you put down, you want to see a return on your investment. You don't want to see money coming out of your pocket for that investment. And you want to set it up in a way that is going to make money for you. So you're not going to hire a management company to hire one building or one property. You're probably going to wait 2, 3, 4 properties down the road. If you've been doing it right and you've developed the right relationship with the right type of real estate agent, guess who you want to hire as your property manager? Probably a real estate agent. Somebody who understands the market. Somebody who's willing to work. They're out there looking for property for you. They're out there managing property for you. That's who I used. I used a real estate agent that helped me. When I started buying, I bought a lot of VA properties. I was looking at so much property from the Veterans Administration, they gave me a key. Because they used a padlock back then. They gave me a key. I could go to any property I wanted with the VA. They had this master key, and it would open up any property. I was making 10 offers a week. And I made them all through her. And when I bought the property, she's the one that found me the tenant. She's the one that collected the rent. She's the one that deposited the money in the bank. And I paid her 10%. It was well worth it. So, you got to surround yourself with the right team. And that is the gist of it for the business information that you need to get started as far as how to set up your own economy, how to create your own economy. In my opinion, this is the only complete and workable system that I have found. What you have right now, from what we've gone over with the corporations, the options, how to make it, how to keep it with the real estate, the businesses, the banking side of things, asset protection, tax reduction, the whole 9 yards. You have a complete roadmap for how to establish and use your own economy. Again, you started your research and your education with this presentation, and you can continue and utilize the Make It and Keep It articles if you want to continue with that research and find out how, why, when, all that kind of stuff. Send me questions, we'll answer them, we'll put them up there, we'll send you an email. If you don't want to do that all on your own, you want us to walk you through it and coach you and discuss all of that, just click on that, the cardinal rule of money, and they'll take you to the sign up page. But this is my visual, the one that we've been looking at most of the time for how to create your own economy. This is our castle, this is our economy, this is our bank, this is our corporation, this is our future. I like it because it is simple. Here, if you just look at this like that, it looks complicated. But we broke it down, we saw how it progresses from one to the other. Again, one word of caution, well, not one word, but a statement of caution. Be careful about learning enough to be dangerous. Make sure that you learn what are the risks and how do I manage them. And always, always, always ask yourself, how can I make this work for me? How can the cardinal rule of money apply to me? Create Your Own Economy runs specifically on that rule, the cardinal rule of money. That money is always working. I need it to work for me. And when I do make it work for me, I need to keep that money that it generated for me. So when I make it, I need to keep it. Thank you very much, and I wish you all the success in the world.